Hey, everybody. Welcome in. Thanks for coming. I do think there's like a 10-second delay between us and YouTube. So I think we're saying hi like 10 seconds before they'll see us. But
Mm.
I'm super excited for this. Thanks, everyone, for coming. I'm Brian. I'm a developer relations engineer here at Kilo. I'm with my buddy Brendan, who's also DevRel at Kilo. And this session is going to be super casual. We're going to just talk to some really interesting builders in the AI space about their workflows, what they think of AI, what the landscape of the tools they're using is, and hopefully you all walk away with some inspiration about how you can implement AI into your workflows and learn about some tips and practical use cases that you might have not known about. I'm going to give it a couple minutes for folks to trickle in because I see there's already some people joining us now, and we'll get started in just a minute. But in the meantime, if you're here on YouTube, drop in the chat where you're calling in from. I'm in New York. Brendan.
Yeah, I'm in Maryland, near Washington D.C. Actually, closer to Annapolis, Maryland, which I will not be going into today because it is graduation for the Naval Academy today.
Okay,
Which
cool.
does mean the Blue Angels are here, which is a lot of fun, but it also means a lot of people and a lot of traffic.
Yeah, it's exciting. All right, cool. I see some folks joining in, so I'll give it maybe one more minute, then we can get started. But super excited for this. We have kind of a broader array of guests than we usually have. We have some content creators, we have some people that run events in the AI space. We have people from model labs, from inference providers, kind of the full spectrum of people that are kind of on the inside of AI from all different angles. So they're going to all be sharing their opinions on AI, the industry, what tools they're using, and hopefully we get some interesting insights from all of them. I'm seeing some people in the chat here. We got Cape Cod, Amsterdam, UK, West Hartford, Atlanta, Indonesia. So everywhere. That's awesome. All right. Well, I think we get started. We got enough people here. And for anyone who joins late, I'm reading the chat here. If you see me look over to the right, that's what I'm doing. So if you have any questions, just let me know. But as I said earlier, for anyone who missed it, I'm Brian. I'm a developer relations engineer here at Kilo Code, and today is kind of a different session for us. We're not doing, the usual thing where we host a webinar when a new model drops and we're talking about benchmarks and impressions. Today, we're kind of kicking off something new, which is just talking casually about how people are using AI in practice, because me and Brendan have been traveling kind of all around the country the past couple of weeks talking to people that are super interested in AI. And one thing I hear from all of them, and Brendan, I feel like I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure you concur, is that people just want to learn how other people are using this tool. They know it's powerful. They know that they can build incredible things with it much faster than they would have in the past. But a lot of people aren't entirely sure how to do that in practice. And I think the best way to learn how to do that is just by hearing how other people are using it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I think there's like the top of the hype cycle, the bottom of the hype cycle, and like folks really want to know like, okay, what's the like actual use case to my day that I can actually get more done with, or get
Yep.
something done that I didn't like doing before, or not like get past all of that hype and into something real.
Yeah, for sure. And again, like this is a live interactive session, so I'm going to be reading the chat the whole time. If you guys have questions for any of the speakers or for us, or if you want to hear something else, just let me know and we'll try to do that. Because this event is going to feature, as I said, insiders, content creators, builders, engineers, like all kinds of people who use AI in really different ways. We're going to be doing this for the next 3 hours. And the idea is just to share workflows, day to day things that you're using with AI. Um, because I do think, as interested as people are, a lot of people sign up for some AI tools, they play with them for a week or so, and then they kind of fall back into old habits because they never really figured out where this stuff actually fits into their day. So that's what we're trying to fix here. And the agenda is going to be pretty simple. I'm going to kick off this series with Brendan by showing two of our favorite Kilo use cases that I think are kind of underrated. Most people don't talk about them as much as they might with agent stuff in the IDE or the CLI. And then we're going to do a kind of a live demo walking through a couple of those use cases. And then after at around 11:30 a.m. Eastern, we're going to bring on our first guest, and then we're going to do 30-minute sessions with each of our guests talking about, I'm going to be interviewing them about how they use AI. They'll share some of their insights, tips, and tricks, and you'll get to hear from people of all different backgrounds and angles using AI and really succeeding with it in this, current landscape. Just checking the chat real quick. Okay, so before we kind of get into the demos, I want to talk a minute about kind of where we are with AI right now. And I'll keep this short because a lot of you live in this space. Maybe some of you are still beginners, but I think it's worth kind of grounding ourselves in the current context. So we're in May 2026 right now. And I don't know about you, but it feels like every week there's like a new frontier model, a new agent harness, a new tool, wrapper, whatever. There's the OpenClaw was killed by this, and the IDE was killed by this, and the pace is insane. It's kind of hard to cut through the noise. And I think personally, the way I cut through the noise is by listening to people that I trust to be actually using these tools, and by talking to people in person or at virtual events through meetups and DMs, and just asking what is the truth to all this? What are the actual tools that can impact my workflow in a legitimate way, and what's just pure hype that doesn't actually equate to anything practical. And I think, the marketing for a lot of this stuff is kind of indistinguishable. Every model says they're the smartest, every agent is the most capable. And so the way you actually figure out what works for you is watching other people do it. And that's kind of one of the things I love most about my job. I get to talk to engineers and builders all day about how they use AI. I get to learn that maybe there's a lot of people that aren't using AI as much as I thought they were because I'm so embedded in this, kind of ecosystem. And Brennan, maybe you can speak to that because you and I were at a conference in Minneapolis this week.
Yeah, we were just together in Minneapolis at Open Source Summit, which is one of my favorite conferences. It's definitely a place where like the Linux community and the open source community at large kind of can get together. And yeah, I was surprised, I think, because like you said, we live, chronically online. I've been in the AI space for over a year with Kilo. And you can get kind of like nose blind to, like obviously everyone's thinking about, when the next model is going to drop, and everybody knows that, open weight models are catching up and everybody knows this. But when it's in reality, you're talking to folks and they're like, yeah, I've tried Cursor, or I've tried Claude Code, or yeah, ChatGPT, sure. But again, I just think there's like such a long way to go in the practical application of AI. That's why I was really excited for this KiloWorks, because I think it's going to really dig into that. And there's a lot of folks like trying to land grab and get your attention, right? Like, of course, the large labs and everybody's new AI product, or everybody adding AI to their existing product, whether you ask for it or not. And so I think getting to like what's really practical is important. And there's still lots of people that don't have the answer to that and have been trying to figure it out. And so I think cutting through that hype again is really critical. Like I won't name the tool, but there's like this tool that I use often to build something. And when Brian and I are together, I was trying to build something, and instead of like presenting me with like the interface I was used to, it just like presented me a chat. And I was like, that's not what I want to do. Like, I know what I want to build. Just let me do it.
Yeah.
And so again, I think that is like enigmatic of like, hey, let's cut through the hype. Let's like close out of the chat window and like think through what are the ways that I can actually practically use this without saying like, oh, the only way I'm going to make it is if I'm using AI for everything. Oh, I hate AI and it's useless and it's a fad that's going to go away. Like, there's the reality, the truth is somewhere in the middle there. And like, let's work on finding it together.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And there's a really good quote that I learned of through our colleague Alex, which is that the people do not yearn for automation, which I think is kind of funny. Like, there is an element to this, which is like over automating, like you said, inserting chat bots that kind of overcomplicate the user experience more than just like a simple bullet form would. And the point that I'm trying to make here is obviously like we're an AI native company and we believe in the power of these tools, but it's more that AI should be, excuse me, a collaborative companion to what you're trying to do, and it should reduce friction, not add friction. And when you're, creating, some people have, kind of created these wrappers and tools that kind of do the opposite of that, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it makes me think of that XKCD. I was actually going to share it real quick. Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so like this XKCD is like very classic, like automation curve thing. Like, oh, I'm going to program this, right? And like this is from trying to think of like what the date is. I don't know if he has the date, but it's from a while ago, right? And it's like, am I going to spend more time making the automation or like actually benefiting from, the automation? And I do think that AI shifts this curve a lot, right? But
Yep.
like, I think the people that are selling you AI is the only way that everyone's going to do everything, right? Like putting that chat interface in front of you is saying like, oh, this curve doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's true. I think the curve still exists. It's just like, has that curve gotten like a lot different because the reality is that things are a lot cheaper and automating things are a lot cheaper in terms of your time today. I think that is true, right? But
Yeah.
it's like, again, how can we cut through and like understand what's on that curve and what still is, not worth your time to be, setting up an agent for doing everything, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Yep.
And I see some activity in the chat. Like, I'm curious which, and you don't have to be biased towards Kilo. Obviously, I am. But which AI tools are you all using, and which are your favorite? Like, which ones have actually impacted your various workflows and day-to-day lives the most? Because I'm genuinely curious. And of those tools, how are you using them? I'd be really curious to hear that, because this next section is going to be a little bit more interactive, and we're going to kind of jump into the demo. So I'm going to share my screen because I put together, if anyone is here at the last two YouTube events we did, which were a lot of fun, I created these kind of viewer guides that are going to help walk you all through the session. So if you scan this QR here or go to this site, kilo.code/kiloworks, it'll bring you to this page, which is kind of a resource guide. I'll throw the QR back up so everyone has a chance to scan. Again, it's kilo.codes/kiloworks. So I'm going to throw that also in the YouTube chat here. This is kind of like the resource guide for the day. So it has links to and info to all of our speakers, their LinkedIns, their bios, kind of some resources for Kilo Code, how to get started, how to use the tools that Brendan and I are going to demo right now. And what we're actually going to do is Brendan and I are going to kind of vibe on this site right now. And we're going to do it using one of my personal favorite Kilo tools, which I think is very underrated, which is Kilo for Slack. So if you don't know, if you're new to Kilo, or you've maybe just used the IDE or the CLI before for agentic coding, Kilo for Slack is based on our cloud agent. It basically allows you to do agentic coding and ask questions about your GitHub code bases, and do basically all the things you can do from the VS Code extension or CLI by just pinging a bot in Slack or pulling it into your conversation. So you can DM it, you can pull it into a shared thread. So if you and your teammates are talking about something, you can actually just pull Kilo into that thread and say, hey, read through the thread and implement it. It'll dynamically select the correct repo to work in. And it's a lot of fun. And it's honestly, I don't know about what you think, Brendan, but I think it's kind of maybe affected the way the Kilo team works more than any other tool.
Yeah, I think that would 100% be accurate, especially like across the company, right?
Yep.
Like I think some engineers would probably say, "Oh no, that's like agent manager, this, some other feature." But like the company as a whole, I think you're 100% correct, because like it's just so convenient, right? Slack is where if anyone's ever worked at a remote company, Slack ends up being where everyone lives, right?
Yep.
And so then having Kilo right there has been like game changing. Like just yesterday, I'm like on the road, like we said, we were traveling for this conference, and one of our engineers who hadn't written a blog for us before but was publishing one this morning, was like, "Hey, how do I do this?" Da, da, da. It's like, I don't see in the handbook the step by step, right? Because we have a handbook that we use,
Yep.
and I like walked him through it like on Slack, and then I just like at Kilo, hey, update the handbook with all of this, and like boom, there's like a pull request, like adding all of this like knowledge that was in my head and easy to like vomit onto Slack,
Yeah,
but then like preserving it, right? Like that kind of thing is just such a game changer.
for sure. Yeah, so we're going to kind of demo what that looks like. And again, this is the guide. We have info about all of our speakers and links to their LinkedIns here if you click the speakers panel on the top right. And I feel like this website is lacking a few key resources that I'd want y'all to have. And so Brent and I are just going to show you what that would look like. For example, we work on the landing page a lot, being on the marketing side, updating copy, updating, information about our products, making sure that the SEO is good and everything. So this is kind of a simulation of how Brendan and I might work on our landing page without actually having to go into the IDE and make the changes manually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a little demo Slack instance that I have here. And I'm in the DMs with Kilo. So this is the Kilo app. And it's actually in the Slack marketplace now. So you can just search for Kilo code in the Slack marketplace and add it to your app. Or real quick, I'll show you what it looks like to add it. If you're going to the Kilo dashboard, which is at app.kilo.ai, you go down to integrations here. You just manage, I have it already set up, but there'd be a button that says configure. You click it, you add it to your Slack workspace, and then you authenticate with your Kilo account, and you can use your Kilo credits to do coding from Slack. So I'm actually going to say, before I even get in a shared thread with Brendan, I'm going to say, whoops, I forgot to add Brendan O'Leary. So I'm in the DMs with Kilo right now as a speaker alongside me in the 11 a.m. slot. Can you add his image, which I have a funny story about how I got a public URL to this image I'll share in a second. And a short bio about how he's the best DevRel engineer on earth. All right, so I'm going to shoot that off. And side story real quick. So this is a cool new animation that I think Raymond, one of our engineers, added, which is like, it's telling us what it's thinking and working on. I actually used my Kilo Claw to get this image of Brendan. So for anyone who doesn't know, and I'll get into this maybe at the very end of the session, because it's a whole nother universe of things. If anyone was here at the last two events we did, we were focused on Kilo Claw, which is our cloud hosted, fully managed OpenClaw service. So basically, if anyone is familiar with OpenClaw, it's a 24/7 proactive AI agent. So basically an agent that can actually do things for you and work in other platforms and be on in the background. And the way you chat with it is through like third-party chat platforms mostly. And I was in Telegram, so I said create a public URL with this image. I just got this from Brendan's LinkedIn, and then it spit out this image, this URL, because it has its own GitHub account. And it gave me this public URL with a link to Brendan's image, and then now I'm just giving it to Kilo for Slack for the sake of showing you Kilo for Slack, but I could have actually just had, Kilo Cloud do the whole thing, but this is more fun. And it actually even links us to the cloud session where it's working on this. So we can actually go through and review like all of the things that it's doing in the cloud agent based on our Slack request. And what it's going to do eventually is create a PR that actually, puts up a PR against this repo for this site. But let's go into maybe a shared channel, all Kilo works, which is just Brendan and I. I'm thinking now, if we had upgraded this Slack account, it could have been fun to like invite everyone in the YouTube channel and have like a big, maybe next time. Would you guys be into that if that was possible? Because I think that'd be fun. Okay. Anyway, Brendan, I don't know what you think is missing from this site, but I think maybe there's not a way for our site visitors to communicate with us.
Yeah, that's a good call. Probably it would be cool to invite everybody to Slack, like you said, if we upgraded it, but maybe it would be best to include a link to our Discord. Let me go get that.
So you can see this is like a
AI/Discord.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, like, this is kind of simulating what would be a real like conversation in a Slack channel, a marketing team talking about what they need to add to their site, an engineering team. So Brendan messages me back here and says, maybe to be best to include a link to our Discord. Let me go get that. And all I got to do is tag Kilo into this thread, and I'll say, Kilo, implement this as a button on the site. on
And
the.
I think we're covering up your thing. Let me do. There we go. Got it. Because we were in the bottom right, so we were
Oh,
covering up
okay,
your
cool.
thing. But I think I fixed it.
Nice. Kilo implement. This is a button on the KiloWorks site. Oh, I didn't add them to the channel yet. I gotta send that. Oh, it's already thinking. That's new.
Oh, it figures it out.
Nice. All right, so it introduced itself here in the main channel, but now it's already working on our KiloWorks button, and it's going to create separate QRs. Also, I'm seeing some questions in the chat. Someone said I used Kilo as a VS Code extension, but the CLI at that time had a bug that caused a stutter in the terminal. Did this ever get fixed? Can I ask when was the last time that you used the CLI? Because I know they've done a ton of fixing and building on it in the past couple of weeks. So my guess would be yes, it's probably fixed if it was an actual bug. Okay, so we can see it's working on our style Discord link. Let's go back and check on the session. Okay, so it says Brendan has been added to the 11 a.m. slot. Let's go check on that Cloud Agent session here. Changes were pushed to main. And there we go. So it actually, the main branch is not protected, which you probably should do that. But since this is a silly little app, we can see that the bot added Brendan as a speaker to the 11 a.m. slot. There it is. Best DevRel engineer on earth. So yeah, basically that was a quick DM to Kilo. I just said add Brendan to the website. I didn't even specify that it was on the KiloWorks repo. So this is connected to my personal GitHub, which has like 50 random repos, and it actually can intelligently select the correct repo to work on, kind of based on the context of the conversation. So it's working on our Discord link. What else should we add? Should we maybe say, I'm gonna like tag you, Brendan, say, how will guests know when the next session is?
That's a good one.
Maybe like a time.
I've got a crazy idea. Like, okay, so Kilo, can you add a timer count down to the website that shows how long until the next session and who the speaker is?
By the way, I just quickly merged that Discord button there.
Yep. Okay, so yeah, I asked Kilo to try and do this, and I've actually got to link my account. So maybe I can show that flow, Brian.
Yeah. I'll
if you want. Let me just share.
While you're doing that, I see a question. Brian, any more info on the Kilo Champion program? Yes, Thomas. I was actually about to email you this morning. I saw your email. I've been traveling the past couple of days, so I apologize if I missed that, but more info to come, and I think you're going to be really excited about it. For anyone who doesn't know, we have a contributor champion program, since we're an open source project, at kilo.ai/contribute. If you merge one PR, you get some certain perks, but if you merge as many as Thomas did, you might even get some Kilo credits, some swag, some hoodies, and some really fun things like that. So check that out if you're into open source contribution.
So Brian, I think I had the wrong permissions. I don't think I have the right permissions on Slack. Can you actually share again and you tag Kilo to do that? I think it's because I'm not an admin on the Slack.
Yeah, I think it's just because it's a demo Slack. So it's like,
yeah.
So I'm going to say at Kilo.
Like, yeah, just tell it to do what Brendan said. It doesn't think I had the rights.
Yeah, so I just said implement Brendan's idea.
Which is nice. It doesn't just listen to anybody on Slack, but we didn't set me up with the permissions beforehand.
Yeah. And while that's working, I want to show one more quick thing that I really like, which is also, I think, an underrated feature of Kilo, which is Cloud Agent, which is actually what powers the KiloBot, and any of the like cloud-based coding agents that we have kind of use Cloud Agent under the hood, which is actually our web-based coding agent. And I'm going to go through this really quick because I'm really excited about our next speaker who's coming on at 11:30. But Cloud Agent is basically a coding agent that's entirely on the web, so you don't need a local machine. You don't need any local compute. It works in your GitHub repos. So as long as you have GitHub integrated here on the left-hand side, I'm going to actually zoom in so you can see that. If you go to the Kilo dashboard, app.kilo.ai, you go to integrations, you add GitHub here, then you can go to Cloud Agent and have it work in your GitHub repos. So let's go to our Kilo Works repo. And for anyone who's used the IDE or CLI, it's a very similar experience. So you have the different modes. You have code mode, which is maybe intuitive, plan mode for architecture, debug, orchestrator for coordinating complex tasks, and ask mode, which is like read only just for answers. And then you can choose your model. So we'll stick with Kilo balanced. You can use any AI model here. We have our auto kind of routers, which switch dynamically between the frontier models, between paid but maybe slightly smaller, more efficient models, and then free models. Or you can use any specific model that you want. So we'll stick with balanced. And one thing that's really cool about cloud agents, which I'm not going to do a huge deep dive in because we just don't have enough time, but I think it's really powerful, are these webhook triggers. So you can actually, the same way Kilo for Slack, works on your code when you trigger it by sending it a message or tagging it or DMing it. You can create custom triggers from any system that can send a webhook. So for example, I have all of these set up like GitHub implementation and documentation refresh that are all webhooks that fire when someone submits an issue or PR to my GitHub repos to automatically update the docs on that repo, or to start triaging an issue, or to start implementing a bug bug fix request. So basically, I have it automated so that when one of those actions happens in my GitHub, a cloud agent fires off and starts working on that while I'm not even paying attention. But what I'm going to do quickly in Cloud Agent here is say, I added a CSV to this repo called attendees.csv. I want you to pick 3 random people from the list and add them to a winners page. And these people will win $50 of Kilo credits. I don't want you to publicly write the winners on the PR. Just have the page ready. All right. So I'm going to send that. And then 3 random people who attended this event, at the end of the event, you're going to get $50 of Kilo credits based on Mr. Cloud Agent's judgment. So I'm going to let that work. And again, this is like just coding from the web without needing a local machine. And it's on this, repo that I have in my GitHub account that powers this site. And there's the join Discord button. So we've added that. We added Brendan. Let's see what the progress is on the timer. So the timer's still working on this. Or the Cloud Agent is still working on the timer idea Brendan had. And then at the end of the event, we'll see who it came up with to win those $50 of Kilo credits. And I'm just checking the chat here. Oh, if you haven't used the CLI in 8 months, it's changed dramatically since then. We actually completely overhauled the entire CLI and created a new one based on the open code server. So it's a completely new experience. I think it's much more efficient and user friendly. So I'd recommend you check it out because I really enjoy it, using it. All right, cool. That's our little demo, our workflow. Kilo for Slack, Kilo Cloud Agent. If you work in a team, I think it's super powerful because it basically eliminates that context switching between, like, you have an idea, your team's chatting about an idea, and who's going to actually implement it and kind of recite those ideas to an agent. Instead, you can just pull the agent right into the conversation. It can take all the context and start working on it. if anyone has any questions, please throw them in the YouTube chat. I'll be paying attention and I'll answer as many as I can at the end of the session. But thanks so much, Brendan. I'm going to kick you off because I
Yeah,
have
sure.
another guest that I'm super excited about, who I'm going to pull on
Cool.
right
And yeah,
now. And
maybe I'll join
yeah,
you at the end for questions, Brian.
yeah, yeah.
I'll DM you on Slack, or I'll have Kilo update the speakers list, maybe.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Brendan. See you soon. All right. Booting you off stage and welcoming Don Chu. Hey, Don. How's it going? I'm good. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm super excited. I kind of think you have like a really unique perspective compared to some of our speakers. And maybe we can start by just you introducing yourself and giving a little background on who you are and what you do.
I'm Dawn. I am a founder and content creator. So content creation is part of my business. What I do is I make content for data professionals, specifically on how AI is considered. There's a lot obviously about like AI to be more efficient, so we don't hear a lot about like how to exactly do it. So I'm kind of fill that gap.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I have two businesses that are running. So one is my passive, which is part of my personal product.
Yeah.
So my partner has a data.
Sorry, Don. I don't want to interrupt you, but it's a little tough to hear you. Maybe switch your mic or something. Yeah, I'm seeing some comments on the YouTube.
Hello, is this?
That is way better. Yep.
Okay, yeah, I have my Bose headphones connected somewhere, so I
Yeah,
think
no
that's what's
worries.
picking it up. All right, should I start again?
Yeah, start again. I could hear you because I had the nice headphones, but I think there was some people in the chat. Yeah.
Cool.
So
All right.
welcome, Don. Let's hear about what you do.
Hello. All right, I'm Dawn. I'm a founder and a content creator. So on the content side, I make the content about using AI in the data profession. So if you're a data analyst or data scientist or data engineer, how do you use AI to do your jobs better? Because right now, I think what we're seeing across the board, across industry, is like there's a lot of pressure to do more with AI, but not a lot of information on how to do it. So trying to help fill that gap. So that's the content creation business. And then on top of that, I have two businesses. The first is, so I really only focus on the data profession, as you'll hear, but the first is helping data professionals get jobs. So I have an interview preparation platform that gives people questions, kind of like lead code, but we use AI to evaluate you. So what that allows us to do is like be a lot more flexible in the solutions that we accept and be more flexible on how you interpret a question, because that's kind of how interviews would be, right? It's a lot more conversation, and like based on the conversation, you make assumptions and then you answer a question. Right. So we have Interview Master that does that. And then I'm also building out So What Data, which is a industry research company. So we talk to as many data professionals as we can and data leaders to try and understand what's happening on the ground and what are the best practices for using AI. I think more importantly, what are the skills that are getting data professionals ahead of the curve? And then we train people on those skills so people can stay relevant and thrive. I think it's a really exciting time for data professionals because it's like, I think AI is such a good opportunity for data professionals to step up into AI strategy. So this is the space, the opportunity I'm helping people capture.
That's awesome. Yeah. And would you mind sharing a little bit about your journey of how you got into data science? Because I think that's like really unique and inspiring, honestly.
You've probably seen the stars. Yeah. So for me, I started back in the day, the first time I heard about the data science career. So I'm older, right? So I'm 35. So I graduated in 2013. Back then, data science was not a major. Right. So I first heard about data science when I was interning at Facebook. And I was on the internet marketing team. It sounds so old school, internet marketing, which is now the growth team. So I was on that team, and then I was sitting next to the data scientists, and I was like, what is data science? Right. That's when I started to hear about it. Then I finished my internship and didn't get an offer to come back to Facebook, unfortunately. It was such a sad day for me. And so I just like made it my point to try and get back to Facebook. Specifically, I wanted to work on data science because I was really intrigued by what my friends were doing as data scientists. So I took a job at Bank of America because I'm foreign, so I'm not from America. So I need a job that will pay for my visa. Right. So I took a job at Bank of America, did not love that job, to be honest. It was just really regulated as a space.
Yeah.
And I always kind of had my mind on this, like getting back to Meta. Well, at the time it was Facebook. Getting
Yeah.
back to Facebook, working as a data scientist. So I applied and interviewed over and over again. Never got the job. I like would
Wow.
make it to the final round, didn't get the job, kept going back for more. And then finally I got a job at Amazon. And I was like, okay, this is going to be my way in back into Facebook. And it was. So after I built a little bit of experience working in tech and in a data role in tech, I was able to finally get an offer from Meta and become a data scientist. And that was my first data science job.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's super inspiring. I am curious, like, so you were kind of early. I mean, like 2015 Facebook era was like, maybe it's prime, right? And I'm curious kind of how has AI changed what a working data science does day to day? Like how dramatic was the shift between that first data role you have versus what the landscape is now?
So it's AI is well, we're talking about Gen AI, right? Because I kind
Yeah.
of always work in the AI space, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
not traditional ML, right? That's always kind of been in part of my job. But the Gen AI space has just made coding a lot easier and made
Mhm.
people move, has helped a lot of us move a lot faster.
Right.
But the thinking part of the role has not changed. So I'd say like what has gotten a lot easier is the tasks like writing code. I guess writing code is tedious now. Or like taking a document and making it into a pretty deck. Like that kind of tasks has gotten a lot easier for the data science role. But what that also means is it frees up a lot of time to do the more interesting and high value stuff. So as a data scientist, that means like asking the right questions or
Right.
making recommendations and then convincing your business leaders or your business partners that they should do what the data is telling them to do. So there's like, I think the stuff that we're doing still remains the same, but there's a shift in balance towards like more of that soft skills, that influence piece.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because at this point, I've probably talked to maybe 4 to 5 dozen data leaders and data professionals about how they're using AI in their jobs. And we're seeing this really interesting shift where there's almost like a bifurcation of teams feeling like their influence has gone up and then teams that feel like their influence has gone down.
Interesting.
Yes, and it's like very extreme, right?
Yeah.
So
Is
the
there
ones
like,
that go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna ask, like, are there characteristics of the teams that feel that their value has gone up versus the ones that have gone down?
Yeah, so the ones that have gone up is like there's like one single thing, which is like they are not thinking about data science as using or leveraging AI tools. Like that's the most baseline level, right?
Okay.
Use Claude Code, Kilo Code, Codex, whatever to
Yeah.
code a lot faster.
Yeah.
That's just a baseline. That's not going to get you anywhere.
It's table stakes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What the teams that are winning is they are repositioning themselves as being leaders of AI strategy and implementation.
Okay.
So they're not just like using those AI tools. It's kind of crazy to say because when I first started having these conversations, a lot of it was just like, how do we be more efficient at our jobs using AI? But it's very quickly shifted over to how do we lead AI strategy? And that results in that increase in influence, which is cool.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of our philosophy at Kilo too, is like that, I guess, thought leadership and taste making almost will become actually more valuable in the age of AI. Yeah.
Yeah. And that thought leadership piece is like, you just can't do it with AI. Like that's all human. That's all creativity and critical thinking.
No, I totally agree. And I have another kind of hot topic question for you that I'm going to ask everybody, which is what do you think's like the most overrated AI tool, trend, or hype thing right now that everyone's talking about versus an underrated one that you actually use, if any?
Yeah. It's so funny. I asked people this question at a conference recently for content. Really? And most people are like, I decline to respond.
You don't have to call out a tool if you don't want to, but like maybe even just something people are hyped about or like misled about what AI actually is or does or something.
Okay. Let me try and answer the question more specifically. But I think one of the general mistakes I see is this idea that like AI tool is all or nothing.
Yeah.
It's like it's magical or it's trash, right? And that's just not the right way to approach using AI, because AI is stochastic. It's going to make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So we got to keep that in mind and understand that it's a tool, not a final end solution.
Yeah.
In terms of what I think is overrated, there is a lot of talk about AI doing things faster for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just use slide generation as an example, but I think this can be applied across a lot of areas. It's like, put in a prompt and you have a slide deck in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And like, yes, you do, but what does the slide deck actually say?
Right.
Like that is just, to me, that's AI slop, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, it's creating like based on something you want to say, it's creating the most likely correct answer. And it's not going to give you anything that's truly unique or truly valuable.
Totally.
I think the better way to use these AI, like slide generations, just as an example, is you write your own content and you just use the AI slide generator to design it for you and make it pretty. And, the stuff that is more tedious, have the AI do that, but you have to come up with the content yourself.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually have been saying this for a while, that I think like having a personal brand like you have and having like a creative style will only become more of a premium as AI gets more powerful. Like having your own personal creative touch.
But it's hard in that topic. And I appreciate you saying that, because I spend so much time in Canva. Like
Yeah.
I adjust margins, I like pick everything, I make sure every single color component is like perfectly the way I want it to be.
Yep.
And then I have friends who would literally take screenshots of what I do, post into ChatGPT, and just make their own version.
Wow.
So it's interesting, because I mean, they're my friends, and I don't feel like they do it off malice or anything, but
Yeah.
it certainly makes me wonder, like, is there value in the long term to be putting in such intentional, conceited effort if AI can do things a lot faster? And I still think it is worth it to like build your own style and be very critical about what you put out there. But maybe there are ways to just make it easier.
Yeah, well, actually, I have a take on that, and I'm curious if you agree with this, which is that I think that the imperfections of a human created thing is gonna be valuable someday. Like I've actually talked to a YouTuber who makes like really polished travel content, like drone shots and like beautiful landscapes and things like that with like really nice cameras. And he actually said that he has to kind of rethink his strategy in his account because those pristine images and shots are so similar to what an AI would generate, because the AI is trying to generate something perfect all the time, that he's
Yeah.
losing out to creators that are filming on an iPhone with shaky lens because it feels human and like raw and like imperfect. So I kind of do believe that there's something to that.
That's really hard for someone who's like an artist who
Yeah.
I'll consider for an artist, right? They've invested in their photography and their videography skills, and they, for so many years, provided value through these hyper realistic like images, for example.
Yeah.
And it honestly really sucks. I don't know the solution, but like, I mean, art is such a big part of our culture. I don't want
Yeah.
that to be replaced by AI. And I kind of hate that AI is like able to replicate that high quality like style, and now people like your friend are missing out because of it, because people are now thinking it's AI. So I don't know what the right solution is, but it really makes me feel very sad for artists in like a world where art isn't truly valued by society.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying, and I agree. But I wonder if like the if since the AI is so perfect and art is such a human thing, like maybe what makes art is that it's like not quite perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
and
maybe
I've
there's something,
always
yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was gonna say that's like a maybe a more optimistic way to look at it, but
Yeah, and right from the beginning of like when ChatGPT first came out and started to like, maybe not 3.5, but like GPT-4, right? Like
Mhm.
those earliest stages where it was really improving really fast. I had this, and I still believe in it, like this hypothesis that live performance art is going to
Yeah,
come back in style. I'm a dancer, right? So I'm very biased towards live performance art,
yeah,
especially like ballet. It's a dying art.
mm,
But I'm hopeful that because of AI, we kind of bring back more of that like in-person rawness and mistakes, because it reminds us we're human and we're all kind of all the same at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. And I've seen that in the tech space too. And maybe you have, which is that I feel like there's more in-person events happening than ever before. And maybe that's a symptom of AI. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot more in-person events.
Yeah.
I'm hosting my first one actually at New York Tech.
No way.
I'll send you an invite
Yeah.
if you want to come. But yeah, it's fun, and I think it's funny because some of these, like my in-person event is still around AI.
Yeah. Right.
It's fun to like connect with humans, like again. That sounds
Yeah.
crazy to say. Yeah.
No, it's true. I think a lot of people are feeling that. And I'm in New York, so I'll definitely come by.
Go. I'll message you.
All right, great. But yeah, maybe getting back to the data science stuff, because I know that's your expertise. Like, yeah, I know you said you train people to help get them jobs in data science. What's like maybe some advice that you have? Because I think a lot of people that just graduated or are junior people in tech are feeling a little bit like, scared about getting a job when AI does a lot of the work that traditionally fell on a junior employee. So what's advice that you would give someone going for a junior data role right now?
Yeah, and we are certainly seeing that to be true, right? I think LinkedIn had a report that came out about the labor market earlier this year that showed, well, there are two parts of there's two market forces happening at the same time.
Yeah.
I think there was a tech boom there was a tech boom in 2020, 21, 22, and that resulted in a lot of people starting to go to school for tech. And then now a lot of people are coming out and graduating. So the supply of new grads is a lot higher.
Right.
And at the same time, companies are reducing the new grad hires because a lot of that work that was previously a junior person's work has now been automated by AI. I think what we're seeing is the bar for junior just has gone up.
Okay.
Like the expectations on what you can do what you need to do at a junior level, at least at the data science side, it's not writing code, it's not building dashboards. It's a lot of that, what we talked about earlier, which is like extracting value from the insights. So the insights themselves are less interesting. It's more about like, are you pulling out the right insights, and are you able to convince people to do what they need to do based on those insights? So I really focus on building out those people skills and being able to demonstrate that in an interview.
Yeah.
The second piece is like the AI enablement piece, right? So we talked about AI becoming table stakes. What's interesting from my conversations with data leaders is the interview processes have not really changed to evaluate for AI literacy, but they are starting to. They might have changed by now, it's me. So like it's what you want to be able to show is like, do you know how to use AI in your day-to-day work, right? So can you use a coding assistant to code a lot faster? Do you know how to critically evaluate the output? Yes. And then can you build out guardrails and evals at scale so that you're making the most out of your AI tools? And then still, of course, like, can you think critically? Because I mean, that's what has always been, a very important skill to have.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious, like, are you hearing that companies are asking about AI tooling in the interview, or is it still like traditional interviews where they don't want you to use AI during the technical parts?
We're seeing both. So some companies are very firmly like, do not use AI. I want to see that you know how to code.
Yeah.
And some companies are, you can use AI tools for it. And then some companies are kind of in the middle where they're like, I want to hear about how you're using AI tools, even if I'm not testing you, right? Is that they want to test or evaluate your ability to learn and your curiosity to like go investigate this new technology.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of ways, I think many companies are still formalizing how they want AI to be a part of their workflows.
Right.
And so they want someone who can come in and meet them at that bar, raise the bar on using AI, right? And so they want people who are not just maybe by the book, but like willing to say, I'm paying attention to what's coming out. I'm paying attention to the news. I'm willing to go out there and learn and experiment. I feel like that like curiosity and adaptability is very interesting to hiring managers now.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm also curious about that. Like, I agree that I think a lot of, especially legacy companies, are maybe just getting started with what their AI adoption plan will look like or formalizing it. Do you find that there's kind of like a dissonance there with how fast the technology is moving versus like where they're actually at? Because like as soon as they adopt Chat GPT, that's already like not relevant or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the dissonance is more internal within an org. I
Okay.
think it's more about what the board and the C-suite is
Yeah.
hearing from the news that AI can do,
Right.
and comparing that against like the reality of what AI is actually doing and able to do on the ground. So I
Gotcha.
think what we're seeing is actually like a lot of pressure coming from tops down on like,
Mhm.
we need AI, we need AI, we need AI, we need to use it, we got to go faster, AI everything.
Yeah.
And then from the bottoms up, kind of like a realistic, like, yes, we're doing as much as we can, but there's still a limit to how much AI can do from us without, or there's still a limit to how much AI can do for us without going into the slop realm, right? And so I think there is that tension between the tops down and the bottoms up, the tops down expectations and the bottoms up reality.
Yeah, I would concur with that for sure.
Yeah. I also wanted to make sure I got to your question because it's like playing in the back of my head. I'm like, I didn't answer that. The overrated
Oh yeah.
was most.
Sorry if I put you on the spot there. I
No,
didn't.
no.
Yeah, okay.
So overrated, I said, like, those do as fast as you can content
Yeah,
generation
yeah.
tools, right?
Yeah.
But I think the most underrated, I have a few thoughts on this. I think that there are three.
Okay.
Number one, I think there's a lot of talk about agents. I love using agents.
Mm-hmm.
But what I feel like people need to pay more attention to are more deterministic ways of using deterministic solutions and pairing that with your stochastic solutions.
Okay.
So very often I'll talk to founders and they're like, I want to do this, and here's my entire AI agent that will do it for me. But then you realize a lot of steps in the process are not actually, do not need to be stochastic. They are deterministic. They're rule-based, right? And I think we need to figure out and be more conscious about like what is deterministic and what's stochastic, and then like build up the deterministic solutions for the deterministic needs and then the stochastic solutions for the stochastic needs.
Gotcha.
It doesn't make sense to use an LLM where you have a deterministic need. Like, one, it's a waste of money. Two, you're introducing error when there needs to be literally almost zero error.
Yeah.
So that's one. I think two, we're also going to see, I think, a new skill, which is like around token optimization. I think that's kind of the prompt engineering skill of like 2024. I think we're going to see that kind of be more and more important.
Yeah.
I think there's news around, like, I think Uber or Lyft came out and said like they blew the entire budget for 2026 by May, because we were just using tokens.
Yeah.
And I use Opus 4.7 for everything. So like I'm bad. But I think learning how to use tokens efficiently and effectively is going to be like a very underrated skill. And then third is productionizing of evals. As we're putting these AI agents into production, meeting end users, I don't hear enough of people thinking about how evals are productionized at the same time. There's obviously going to be drift when you put your models into production. It's going to be prone to errors. The model providers could change things without telling you, right? And so being able to productionize evals is another, I think, really underrated part of AI usage.
Yeah, and I agree. Like at these conferences I've been to, a lot of the questions were about how to optimize token usage. People fearing that, I mean, these subsidies from the model labs are going to end eventually, and then they're on the hook for the actual price of what they're using. And if your workflow depends on you using thousands of Opus tokens, that's going to cost a lot of money eventually. Some people think.
So over the span of 2 days, I had two different conversations. Both people said they had a $500 budget. But one company was like, you need to use at the minimum $500. And then another company was like, you have a maximum of $500. So I think it's going to go towards the latter, which is like, here's your limit. Don't go over it.
Interesting. Yeah, because there's like the token maxing trend, which I'm sure you've heard about, which is like, I actually know some people that firmly believe that every token you spend has like a higher ROI impact on your like AI nativeness. And I'm curious, like, so you're kind of in the camp like token maxing is not the answer.
Yeah, token maxing is not the answer, but token maxing is the fastest, most convenient way to do it, right? I put Opus 4.7 extended thinking on everything.
Yeah.
Like even if it's so embarrassing, but like even if I just like I'm like go through this doc, replace the \n with actual line breaks so I can
Yeah.
render my HTML file. I do that with Opus 4.7 because I'm like, I don't need to change my model. I know it works
Yeah.
and it's part of my subscription. Go.
Yeah, fair enough, right? Yeah, I think like that like the subscription model is allowing that right now, and maybe that's temporary. And that's kind of like a philosophy we have at Kilo too, which is why we want people to like be able to switch models at any time so that you can like easily switch to like or dynamically to a cheaper model for something super simple when the time comes where like the subsidized subscriptions aren't as cost efficient anymore, which they are now, to be fair. Yeah.
Yeah. You're saying they're still cost efficient now?
Yeah, like if you have an Opus subscription and you're using Claude Desktop, you get to use more tokens than the actual dollar amount that you pay if you were to like do that through the API, right?
Yeah, but you can't do that at work because enterprise subscriptions are all API based. So yeah, it works.
True.
But then again, at work, you're not paying for it either. So
yeah, someone is though.
Someone out there. So,
yeah. Yeah. Well, before I let you go, I want to ask a little bit more about like your content creation. Are you using AI to help you with that? Do you have any advice for someone trying to get into creating content in tech or elsewhere? Because I know that's, in my opinion, that's going to be like a growing industry because it's like human native, right? So I'm just curious if you have any advice there.
So I do use AI for the stuff that I do over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So like weekly analytics, I have some kind of API call in my Claude or Codex, right? I have them go out there, pull my metrics, and then evaluate it and tell me what I should do more or less of. But I never use it for anything that's like actual creation of content.
Right.
So like ideation, coming up with ideas, I never do that. And then worse is coming up with scripts. Like there's nothing worse than like being a content creator and putting your voice out there and realizing it's not yours. So I'm very, very, very careful about not doing that. Yeah. What I do is like if I have a script and I want to convert it into a caption, or I have a script, or I have a script and I want to convert it to a post, like I already put in all the content myself, then I'll use AI because I'm like, I know all the meat of that is my own and it's interesting to me. I'm happy to use AI to like speed up the process of like repurposing across different platforms. Yeah. But everything needs to be like, obviously, give it a lot of samples based on my voice, what I've done before in the past, so it can write similarly to me.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think I know that's kind of there's a mixed camp with like some of the AI content creators out there who are maybe like using AI video voice gen and things. But I do appreciate that you like are adamant about having the creative part come only from you.
Yeah. I mean, I also think there is already a lot more AI slop, and there's going to be even more. I think as more and more companies build out ways for you to make more AI content yourself. Yeah. But I think it really is kind of up to individual creators. Like, what's your what's the goal of making content, and what's your creative vision for your account?
Yeah, for sure. And do you have my last question?
I can't hear you all of a sudden.
Oh, how about now?
Is it me?
It may be you. I think I see my volume coming through.
Hold on.
How about now?
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, it was me. Okay.
Okay. No worries. My final question is because I know we're coming up on time, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be there. For those who don't know, Don has like 200,000 followers on LinkedIn and is much more important than me in the AI space. So I really appreciate it. But I want to ask if you have any content or any advice non-related to AI for someone getting started in content, like any strategy things, like how does someone get started in a career in content?
Think about content like the long game. And this is something I thought about, but wish I had thought about before. I would make content that you feel like you can talk about for the next 5 to 10 years. And I would plan out your schedule and your cadence of creating content and posting as if you're going to do it for the next 5 to 10 years. Because content is a grind. You know this, Brian. You make content too.
Yeah, it is.
it grind. It's so hard to put your heart and soul into a post and you put it out there and no one gives a crap about you.
Yeah.
Or you say the same thing over and over and over again, no one gives a crap about you. So I think about it as like, create a system and a goal for yourself that can last 5 to 10 years, something that you're excited to talk about, that you know you have enough to talk about, to go out there and learn.
Yeah.
And then just be very, very patient with yourself, because I personally go on Instagram and I see like creators are like, I got 15,000 followers in 1 month. It took me like 6 months to get my first 1,000 followers on Instagram. So like it's a process. Be patient with yourself and make sure you know your why. Like, why are you doing this?
Right. So like be patient, be consistent, and do talk about something that you're actually at least somewhat passionate about, so that you have like the energy to like be in it for as long as it takes to actually get the following.
Yeah, and think long term, long
Yeah.
term. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you joining, Don. Thanks so much. This was great and super insightful. So thanks again. And hopefully I'll see you soon in New York.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me, Brian.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
All right, cool. Give it up for Don in the chat. I'm going to read through some comments here because our next guest is coming soon. I think he'll be joining in just a minute. Oh, lots of comments here. Oh man. Someone said, looks like Brian slept 3 light years ago. Dang. That's funny. Now, I honestly didn't get great sleep last night, to be fair, but tonight I will. All right, let's see what other comments we got here. If Don's still here, people are saying wise notes to finish on. Anything worthwhile takes time. I agree. I see some conversations happening about Quen 3.5. Minimax seems like, yeah, I'm curious what also, while we wait for our next guest, which models folks are using. I know obviously like Opus and Sonnet and Gemini and GPT 5.5 are all fan favorites. But I'm curious if there's any sleepers. I personally love using the Minimax and Quen and Kimi models as kind of like my more token and cost effective models when I'm not doing something that requires like super intensive reasoning. But I'm curious what you all think. And I'm just gonna check on our next speaker. I think he'll be joining in just a minute. And let's actually go check for any of you. I see Minimax 2.7. I see GPT 5.5 switching to Mini for the easy things. Okay, that's a good workflow. I think a lot of people share that. So I'm actually going to jump over. For anyone who wasn't here, I'm going to share my screen real quick. So at the beginning of the call, Brendan and I, my colleague, shared this resource guide. So this is the QR in the website, kilo.code/kiloworks. And there's a QR that'll scan you and bring you to this website. We used Kilo for Slack and Cloud Agents to build out a couple additional features. So we added the join the Discord button. We added the Brendan to the speaker guide here. And then one more thing we were going to add, which I'm going to check in on Slack, was a timer that links to the next session. So let's go check that out, or that counts down the time until the next session. Okay, I'm going to pull up Slack real quick. There it is. There's the PR. So basically for anyone who wasn't here, I pinged Brendan in our shared channel. I said, how will guests know when the next session is? Brendan said, at Kilo, can you add a timer countdown to the website that shows how long until the next session, who the speaker is, assume the times are in EST. And then it created this cloud agent to go through and actually build it out for us. And then it spit out this PR. So let's check on this PR. Okay, it looks like some So I have my, this is another funny thing we can run through real quick. I have my Kilo code reviewer enabled on my all my repos in my personal account, and it's currently set to roast mode right now, which is kind of like a fun little, and I saw a comment about this. Someone said, is roast basically grill me mode? And yes, it basically just criticizes and is mean about your code. So it's still helpful. It still flags things that should be changed. So we don't have anything critical. We have a warning and 2 suggestions here. But yeah, it was roasting our cloud agents timer. Let's just go ahead and oh, there's looks like there was a deployment error. So let's actually, I'm going to copy this error and I'm going to go back to Kilo and say, looks like your changes caused a deployment error. And then I'll just paste the thread here. Let's see what it comes up with. Okay, I'm also seeing some more activity in the chat. GPT 5.5, switch to mini for the easy things. Someone said, I personally use the one that I currently have a sub for, which is Gemini. Really enjoy Minimax and Quen 3.6 local, if not using the Kilo free router. Quen 3.7. A lot of love for Quen. Mimode 2.5 is an underrated VLM model. Kilo is great at switching models. Appreciate that. Great advice from Tyler. If you hit the X in Vercel, it only shows you the error lines and you can copy them. See, this is like, so I was actually, when we were at the event yesterday in Minneapolis, which was the Linux Foundation Open Source Summit, Brendan and I were at. I've gotten into this habit of saying I'm not like a developer. I am I'm someone who is in the tech space and just happened to kind of learn some developer tools and be good enough to be sharing it with everybody. And then yesterday, Brendan was like, dude, you're a developer. You have to stop saying that because of all the things I've managed to build while being at Kilo and other companies using like AI tools and dev tools to help me do it. But there's always these little things I learn, like Tyler's suggestion in Vercel to hit the X, that make me feel like I'm an absolute noob beginner, which is something that I should know. It's like little things like GitHub navigation or like CLI navigation or Git commands where an actually legitimate engineer will do something and I'll be like, wow, I was doing that in such an embarrassing way. Is that relatable to anyone here? Is that just me? I'm curious. Someone said this is like watching my own workflow live on stream. I'm good. I'm glad. Okay, it looks like our guest is running a little bit late, which is totally cool. He's a busy guy. So I'm just gonna keep going through this kind of Kilo Slack workflow real quick. Let's check out this session that it's running here. And then maybe we can go through a little Kilo Claw fun. Is anyone here using Kilo Claw? Or if you're not using Kilo Claw and you are using Kilo, which Kilo tools or platforms are you using? Someone said 50-50 relatable. Okay, fair enough. I'll take that. I'll accept that. And then someone said, what would be your recommendation for which model to use for agentic AI stuff? Simple things like email triage and more complex things like image and speech recognition. So I think it kind of depends on maybe some more specifics of your workflow. And you know, if we have to push, so we had a guest planned who I think actually had to get pulled into something urgent. So we can make this kind of a Q&A this next, 15 minutes before our next guest comes on, if that works. Because I see the chat is very active, which I appreciate a lot right now. My recommendation is, well, it depends. So for example, I use Kilo Claw, which is our hosted OpenClaw service, quite a bit at work nowadays. If anyone received, maybe I can go through this workflow because it's pretty cool. If anyone received our email yesterday, and that's why you're here, I sent out 2 emails to our customers. One, which was telling people that have been to Kilo events about this event today. where you got a rundown of the speakers, you got like a link, and it was like all about KiloWorks. Did anyone get that email? Because the second email that I sent yesterday was our general weekly newsletter that we send every week to all of our customers, which included a CTA to this, but wasn't like the main focus. And had some other, fun details from the Kilo verse. And I used my KiloClaw, which is our hosted OpenClaw, to design and administrate both emails. And okay, so I see someone was here from email. Glad to hear that. And basically, what I did was I was on the plane, and I think Alessia, my colleague, is in the chat as Kilo Code right now. I was on the plane, and all I had was messaging Wi-Fi. So I couldn't actually get on the internet. I could only message, but I had to develop this newsletter. It's like HTML. I had to get the newsletter out last night to make sure that I had enough time for people to join the event, right? So I basically have my Kilo Claw, and I'm going to jump over to that while, okay, so actually real quick, looks like this agent pushed the solution for the build error to our GitHub. So let's check that out before we get sidetracked. Looks like there's, okay, so push the PR. So long story short is I was messaging my Kilo Claw to design the HTML, which I'll pull up right now on my Telegram, just all through Telegram. So there it is, my HTML, and this is like the newsletter here. It designed it because it has the HTML that I like in my GitHub folder, and it was spitting me out the HTML, and then I was slacking it to Alessia to put into our email sending service and actually send to the customer. So I was like going back and forth with, it's kind of a cheat code, right? Like I actually heard this from someone else I talked to at an event yesterday. If you only are able to send messages, like if you're on plain Wi-Fi or something, you can have your claw go and actually do development for you, and like code for you and spit out like actual code, and then you can share that with your colleagues. So that's the story of how I got the newsletters out yesterday to all of you. Messaging my Kilo Claw to develop the HTML, sending it to Alessia, my colleague, to actually put in our email software and send. And I was really only able to do that because Claw exists and you can talk to it through a messaging app. Anyway, I see our next guest is here. So I'm going to welcome him to the stage. I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick. Hey, Adi, how's it going?
Hey, Brian. How's it going?
I'm good. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I followed Kilo for quite some time now, and it seems like things are going really, really well. We're in some exciting times. So
Yeah,
thank you so much.
I appreciate that. I think maybe it'd be helpful to give the audience kind of a background on who you are, what you do, what you're working on. I think it's super cool, and I think a lot of people would be interested in that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I am a co-founder of this company called Agent Mill, which is an API that's designed to give your agents their own email inboxes. So the simplest way to think of us is kind of a Gmail that's purpose-built for AI agents. We
Right.
started this company back in November 24 when
Okay.
not a lot of people were talking about agents, but we always looked at email as being very fundamental to identity, to how you communicate on the internet, and we think agents need that same access.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I think I'm kind of curious, like, what did you have like an aha moment when you thought of that? Because I don't even think agents weren't really even like vernacular back then, right? Like that was
Yeah.
like so far off still.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was definitely like an aha moment, and it was one of those ideas where I was like, I can't believe no one is doing this. How we kind of came across it was essentially we wanted to automate drop shipping back then. So
Okay.
go on Alibaba and then go spin up a Shopify store and use an agent to kind of sell things for free. So what we realized is, okay, it's really hard to create an inbox for your agent, because the Gmail API, you have to click a bunch of buttons, you have to pay 8 to 12 bucks a month for a custom domain,
Yep.
and sometimes like those accounts would just get outright banned because Gmail doesn't want automation. It's
Yeah.
been there for 20, 30 years because it prevented like spam and bots from signing up.
Right.
So it just was never built for agents, and that's when we realized like, hey, like if there's this big shift coming, then there probably need to be like a service like ours, and that's when we decided to go off the deep end there.
Yeah. That's crazy. I'm kind of curious, like, what are some of the wildest, like, now that we've gotten to the point where this is like a widely adopted thing, like these autonomous agents, what are some of the like real world workflows that people are running with agent mail?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So there's definitely like a few categories that I see most prominently. Um, the one for personal assistance, like OpenClaw, is okay, how can I just make email like very simple and easy as like an interface to interact with my agent too. So let's say you want to schedule a meeting, you can CC in your KiloClaw and say, okay, like find a time and send me a calendar link with
Hmm.
the person I'm talking to.
Hmm.
Or if you're in your email and then you see something important like an invoice or a contract, you can forward that email to your Kilo and say like, hey, this is like stateful. Um, Another thing I see is, let's say you are coding with Kilo, and you want it to have its own account when it makes PRs and be able to kind of have its own audit trail,
Hmm.
you can tell it to go sign up for GitHub or any other service. I see people kind of sign up for newsletters or have their agent sign up for newsletters, and then the agent receives the emails and only sends you like a curated summary and digest of what's everything that's going on. So um, that's kind of what I see mainly. I think in other terms, like when it comes to negotiation, booking, scheduling, back and
Yeah.
forth outreach, and like B2B,
Yeah,
uh, email just is B2B is like bread and butter. So
for
I see a
sure.
lot of that too.
Yeah. So I guess I have some questions kind of, I think maybe just arising from like hearing this, which is like, what does like security look like for agents when they're doing email? Like is prompt injection a problem? Like how do you think about things like that?
Yeah, no, 100%. And
Yeah.
it's honestly funny because post OpenClaw was when these issues like really started to become prevalent, because we almost became like a consumer tool overnight,
Right. Yeah.
right? And prompt injection, I think, is like the number one concern for all these like agents right now. Um, and when you look at email, it's like an interface that 4.45 billion people live on. So it's an open standard. So like we think a lot about these things. So within the API, I think we're bearing a lot of onus of like providing those rails too. And it can't be something that's like I just say, "Hey, go make a skill to
Yeah.
combat prompt injection." So you'll
Right.
actually see like concepts of allow lists and block lists, so
Okay.
you can control like who your agent can send and receive messages from. You'll see like we kind of have anti-spoofing measures. So if someone doesn't have like their DKIM, DMARC, SPF records configured, then we'll kind of let the agent know that it's coming from like an unauthenticated domain.
Hmm.
And then the third thing is some like we also like restrict permissions that an agent can have. So let's say like you only want your agent to be able to read messages but not send or act on them.
Yeah.
You can do that as well. So like we've made our API, even like in the way we provision API keys, we made it as granular as possible so that you really have deterministic access to what an agent can and can't do.
Yeah. Very cool. And also I'm curious, like it's kind of a separate topic, but when the internet becomes so saturated with agents, which I think a lot of people are expecting that to happen, how does that change like how email works? If it's like mostly agents emailing other agents, is that something you think about or like a future that you're preparing for?
I definitely do think about that, and I
Yeah.
sometimes look at my inbox and I'm like, the amount of AI generated emails already.
Yeah.
Maybe it already happened.
Yeah.
I do think there's probably going to be like a critical mass
Yep.
where we just have so many agents proliferate like every surface that we communicate on. So whether that's email, I could see text, I could see WhatsApp, like all these things kind of amassing together. And I think it's going to be interesting. I think in the end game, I definitely see a protocol that's built for agents
Mhm.
um, to kind of communicate seamlessly in real time with one another. And a lot of companies are working towards that. What I think happens in the meantime is probably like just this adoption steadily increases. And I
Mhm.
think there's going to be like a lot more explosions that are going to come that are exactly like OpenClaw.
Right. Yeah. And I'm curious, like, have you seen, is your product like mostly, is the most adoption happening through OpenClaw right now or other agentic tools or, yeah,
Yeah, that's a good question. So OpenClaw was like the initial explosion spike for us.
yeah,
Because initially we were super niche, like it was like this B2B dev tool that, okay, why does my agent need an inbox? What is an agent? And then when OpenClaw happened, it became, why doesn't my OpenClaw have an inbox? Overnight. So I think when it comes to this particular tool, there
hmm
was like a big curiosity spike. I think the biggest we've ever seen. But like what we're seeing on our end is like some of that curiosity is kind of like trailed downwards a little bit, and then it's like a certain group of power users who are kind of like retaining. And like those power users usually end up in like a few buckets, like whether it's doing some sort of knowledge work, whether it's monetizing a business, right? And I think what's going to happen over time is more and more people are going to start building specialized use cases for agents because there's so many, and right now it's just kind of like,
yeah,
what are the use cases that make this a prominent part of my life? So I'm sure like a lot of your guys' users are like in that bucket where it's like, hey, they're retaining, they're coming back over and over again.
yeah,
um, and like we see a lot of adoption more so kind of towards like the B2B side right now,
hmm
because now they're becoming like the agent builders. But I think it's going to be like an interesting tug of war where it's like there's going to be another product that leans more towards consumers, and then there's going to be businesses that adopt it. Like it's going to be like a vicious cycle that I think compounds over and over again.
yeah. No, I definitely tend to agree with that. Um, and I kind of want to, this is a question that I've been asking everybody
Yeah.
today, which is that, what do you think is the most overrated thing in the AI space, or overrated or overhyped, either like tool, trend, like, philosophy in the AI space right now, and what's the most underrated?
Huh. It's a good question.
Thank you.
uh, hmm.
And if there's no answer, that's fine too. I'm just genuinely curious, like, or what do you think? Like, I guess for people that haven't adopted something yet, what's one thing that you'd want them to try to adopt?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I can start with underrated.
Okay.
So self improvement is something that not a lot of people are talking about, but I think it's getting scary good.
Yeah.
Um, so when you look at things like Hermes, for example,
hmm
every 15 tool calls, it's able to kind of reevaluate how it's doing. And what you'll find is that it is it does make quite a difference. And I think agents too, if they are going to be fully autonomous, I know Peter and like the OpenClaw team is also building in these measures.
hmm
Like agents will need to self-improve, and I think models as a whole, like there's so much context that is amassed and thrown at them, there's so much ambiguity. The only way they become better is like when they kind of learn how they interact with a user, what the behavior looks like over different tasks, over different settings, and like those self-improvement loops, I'm seeing them both on like framework side, I'm seeing people build plugins. um, I think like that sort of like context optimization is going to be very, very important, and it's like necessary, and it's already getting pretty good.
Yeah.
When your model is able to run for like 12 hours overnight, and it is right, like a lot of people are building these background agents, like it it has some degree of that to it, which is very powerful. I think overrated. Mm, I would say this isn't really like a AI thing, but more so of like a hype thing. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's very easy to kind of say like, hey, I'm building a startup and build like a prototype, and I guess get funded for it these days. At least from what I'm seeing, but I think still the value of having like paying customers that are sticky, that don't churn, like is the same as it was back then. It's just
Yeah.
like easier to get funded for it now.
Right.
So like I think like building for startups and building for small businesses is probably like the most potent segment to build for. And a lot of people ignore that because they're like, hey,
Right.
I want to go sell to big enterprises. And even enterprises have these big spend commitments, but like when you look at the usage behind the scenes, it's not all, it's not
Yeah.
all sunshine and rainbows. So,
Yeah. That's good advice.
yeah, like what I'll say is like, a lot of people say like, hey, you can scale up and you can build a big company and raise and do this and the timeline's expedited. I'd say if you're selling to startups, if you're selling to small businesses, these are probably the actual use cases that these companies are living on. And they
Yeah.
would probably be a very good user and very good segment to build for. And startups are always going to have a natural advantage then. So I would say go build, go find real users. And, even if Anthropic, OpenAI say they're going to compete in that space, you will always have like a natural advantage there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I guess kind of leading off that is one of the last questions. Like what is some advice for someone who's trying to become a founder like you? But aside from like what you just said of, going after like maybe startups and smaller customers and having
Yeah.
like that different strategy, like how did you go from not a founder to a founder?
Yeah. So there's like a few pieces there.
Mm.
Number one, I would say the very thing that makes you think you have something worthwhile is if you go sell your service to someone and they get mad if your service shuts down, if they'll come banging on your door,
Yeah.
that's when you know you have something kind of worth building for. And
Gotcha.
that's what kept us going when no one was really talking about agents. So I think like all the essence of building and being a founder is like, okay, do you want to build something that provides value to other people? And at the end of it, like no matter how much you scale, that's really the thing that kind of brings you joy, right? So
Right.
we're at a point where it's like, okay, like we have like tens of thousands of people who've like used the product, but no matter how much we scale up, no matter what company we sell to, like at the end of the day, I just love going on Twitter and I love seeing like, hey, someone built like a workflow or found some value out of the product. So
Yeah.
I would say like love of the game for the idea you're working on, for who you're working on it with, and what you want to do around that idea and what you want to build, like a whole movement around that is probably why you should do it. It is hard. It is frustrating. You can't be results oriented. You can't want everything overnight, even though it would be nice.
Yeah.
um, you really need to be in it for like the long game and say, hey, like there's nothing else I'd rather be doing in the world right now. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice. I guess as like a final question or opportunity to say whatever you want, like what's one thing you want people to know about agent mail or about AI, or maybe one use case that they can walk away from this with that they might have not had before?
Yeah.
And
I think
feel free to flex about agent mail or anything else you want. Seriously.
I can plug.
Yeah, do it.
I'd say this about agent mail. I think half the world lives on email. I know there's like a lot of sexier interfaces, whether it's like your iMessage, whether it's your text, but
Mm-hmm.
there is just so much time that's lost, that's spent, that's consumed in email. And when you kind of look at your inbox, I would say it's the most intuitive piece of context for both a human and an agent too, right? In terms
Right.
of having all your 2FA codes, your receipts, your audits, your transactions, your bank statements, your tax returns, everything kind of flows through email. So when I look at Agent Mail, I don't even look at it as more so of, hey, like we're like an email provider. I look at it from like a long term of like we are the identity company for agents.
Right. Yeah.
So I think how we scale up and how we are thinking about this is like, look, agents are going to need to have like a verifiable identity, and they're going to need to live on the same interfaces as us. So how do we make that as intuitive, as friendly, and as familiar as possible? That's why we're dealing with the complexities of SMTP, which was built in the 1980s, and trying to make that work for agents. That's kind of our whole thesis there. So
yeah, no, it makes sense. And hey, Adi, I really appreciate the time. That was super insightful, and everyone should check out Agent Mail if they haven't already. And yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, Adi.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, talk soon. See ya.
Bye-bye.
All right, give it up for Adi and Agent Mail. I see some love in the chat. And I'm going to welcome our next guest, Mr. Alex Campos. Hey, Alex.
Hey, Brian. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, of course. So I think it could be helpful to kind of give a quick background about who you are, what you do, what you're working on, what your company does, and all of that fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and again, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah.
So my name's Alex Campos. I've been working in tech for almost 10 years now, predominantly in the startup space. So I've always been one of the founding members of the go-to-market team at the startups that I've worked at, which I think is a really exciting place to be. I think bringing a product to market is a creative process and an intellectual challenge in many ways. And it's also, cross-departmental. So I think that's always been a really exciting place to kind of build my career. And I've enjoyed the journey thus far. Right now, I work for a company called Friendly AI, which is a very exciting inference provider. And so, for those who don't know what an inference provider is, we, in essence, empower engineers to deploy open source models at production scale. And specifically, we focus on optimizing AI workloads for reliability, performance on latency and throughput, and also make them cost effective as well. So right now, I've been working for the company for about a year now, and it's been an amazing journey thus far. So just to give you some historical context about our company, which I think is relevant and is a great origin story. So our company was founded about 5 years ago. It was founded out of a research lab out of Seoul National University in Korea. And the founding team basically built an inference engine from the ground up. And we're some of the inventors of some novel techniques in the inference space that have now are being widely used by some of the industry leaders in the space. And so what the team is focused on is really pushing the limits on performance of AI workloads so that, one, again, as I mentioned, they can be cost effective, and also so that you can deploy AI models in a really performant way in your applications.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's super helpful context. So I got some questions for you, which I think you have kind of the unique perspective to help answer. And also there may be some questions in the chat, but I think the first one is kind of more broad, which is that I'm curious from your perspective, serving up these models and probably, communicating with more decision makers than maybe the average like end user of AI. Which industries would you say are quietly getting the most leverage from AI that nobody's talking about? Everyone's talking about software engineers, but are there any other industries that people are getting, kind of quietly growing from with using AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one that comes to mind is potentially like the insurance industry, for example. I think these are companies, like if you think of an insurance industry that processes, or an insurance company that processes many claims per day and have to underwrite and do a lot of insurance underwriting, there's a lot of during that process, I don't know if you've ever gone through that process, but it's basically a lot of collection of information from a number of different parties,
Yeah.
right? And that information can be in many data forms. And so using large language models to process and synthesize that information is a great way to enhance productivity and save time for the underwriter to process claims. I think also it's being used in innovative ways around, actually at the accident site,
Right.
to use, vision language models to process the actual images and label them appropriately. So I think there's a lot of really innovative ways that the insurance industry, for example, is using AI to, save a lot of time and enhance productivity for processing claims. I think that's a kind of an interesting industry that's really using AI in innovative ways that maybe not a lot of people are talking about.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And that kind of leads me to my next question, which is that is what's like the most interesting shift in how customers are using AI maybe in the last 6 months or a year? And are you seeing customers or people in the industry, requesting different characteristics or efficiencies in the models versus when they were using them, 6 months to a year ago?
Yeah, I think what we've seen specifically in the market is the shift from like solely relying on closed models and
Mhm.
diversifying the model layer to consider open source models. And I think, whether it's an AI native company or whether it's a enterprise company that's leveraging AI to augment their current product suite,
Right.
uh, there there's a number of models that they use, and historically they've kind of preferred to rely on the closed model labs and APIs for those use cases. But what they're
Right.
seeing now is that given the performance and quality of some of these open source models, which in some cases are almost at parity with some of the closed model APIs,
Mhm.
there is an opportunity to actually replace some of the closed models with open models for cost benefits, greater control, and also with an open model, there's portability. So you're not necessarily locked into one particular vendor and beholden to their roadmap.
Right.
You can port that model across multiple providers. And so I think what we're seeing is that, now that there's been proven value with AI, and oftentimes and historically, I think these companies have, you know, uh, resorted to the closed model labs, which makes a lot of sense. They're
Yeah.
they're frontier model labs, but now they're seeing that the open source models are just as performant and can also create great benefits on the cost saving sides of things, security sides of things, and as I mentioned, portability and control. So
Yeah.
I think that's the shift that we're starting to see in the market in the past 6 months.
Yeah, no, I think that's really insightful because I'm like a big fan of some of those more open source models, like maybe DeepSeek, Quen, GLM, and all of those. You
Yeah.
you kind of just touched on it, but are where do you see those models maybe actually beating some of these closed frontier models, like everyone's favorite Opus, Gemini, GPT, in real
Yeah.
world usage?
Yeah, I think I would say the strongest use cases right now would be coding, so software engineering and agentic
Yeah.
workflows. And so, for example, with the release of GLM 5.1, that's one of the top models for software engineering across both open and closed models.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, even our team here at Friendly, our engineering team uses GLM, and we've seen insane and tremendous increases in productivity across our team. And the benefit is that's at a fraction of the cost, right? So I think those are the two strongest use cases that we're seeing for some of the models that you listed.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree. And I guess I mean, I see some people in the chat saying, what about privacy? I know that's a concern maybe for some of these like open weight models. Do you have any advice or insights on that? And kind of like, tagging onto that, how should professionals decide about when they should use an open weight model versus when they maybe need to reach for one of those frontier models? Closed.
Yeah, sure. So I think on the privacy front, I think that's obviously something you have to take into consideration. But I think And I think working with an inference provider, that is something that you can alleviate. And what
Right.
I mean by that is that, optimizing AI workloads or managing your own infrastructure is challenging. I think
Mhm.
managing GPU resources efficiently and optimizing models for certain workloads, those are specialized skills.
Right.
And doing that securely and making sure that your data is protected is also something that I think an inference provider would be specialize in, and that's something that we specialize in here at Friendly. So
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely a consideration, and I think depending on your workload or your use case, if you have certain sensitivity around your data, that's something that you should consider, and make sure that you're choosing the right inference provider. So, for example, at Friendly, we're SOC 2 Type 2 certified. We're HIPAA compliant. So these are the what we've kind of put into place in order to ensure the privacy of our customers' data.
Yeah.
So that's a consideration. I think the second part of your question was, how should you choose, or when do you feel like an open model is good enough? Was that the
Mhm.
second question?
Yeah, essentially. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think that depends on your use case and where you are in your product journey. So I
Yeah.
think where open models become really compelling is when you achieve a certain volume of scale, because the cost benefits become really compelling at that point. I think
Right.
if you in the early days, I think the closed models is a great option, right? The dev experience is straightforward. They're trusted vendors. So I think in the early days of your product journey, that makes sense. But once you achieve a certain level of volume and scale, moving to an open model that has comparable performance and quality is going to generate significant cost savings. And as we were talking about before, I think that creates greater versatility for your team as you're building AI applications.
Yeah.
I think also, again, diversifying the model layer to include open models makes your system more reliable and more resilient. And so I think those are all considerations that you make as your product or AI application is starting to achieve certain levels of scale and volume. And then once
Yeah.
you make that choice to consider open models, I think it's important to design the right experiments, right? So design an experiment where you're comparing a closed model to an open model on the same workload and compare the outcomes. And as we were sharing before, some of these open models for many tasks are at parity from a benchmarking perspective
Yeah.
to these closed models. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's exactly what we've seen reflected in the usage in Kilo. And from our customers, hearing like, Kimi K 2.5 or the Minimax models are all, for the majority of tasks, like negligibly less intelligent than,
Right.
say Opus or GPT.
Right.
Yeah, and kind of like thinking about, I guess, engineering teams, like how should teams, and we sort of touched on it, but how should teams think about model ownership and avoiding, vendor lock-in as AI becomes core or native to their business? And do you see the model landscape continuing to diversify, or do you think it's going to consolidate to some kind of like frontier monopoly?
So yeah, I think diversifying the model layer, as we've been discussing, I think provides greater versatility and agility for engineering teams that are building applications on top of AI models. And if we were to dive into that a little bit further, what we mean by that is, when you work with a closed model API, you are beholden to the roadmap of that model and that
Right.
vendor, right? And so you have less control. And
Hmm.
if you are using that model in a critical workload and all of a sudden the vendor decides to deprecate that model, for example, that's going to impact your product and its viability.
Yeah.
So I think that's why the idea of using open models that are portable, and when we say portable, we mean that you can take the open model and move it to different providers as well.
Right.
So that gives you greater flexibility, greater leverage as an engineering team.
Hmm.
So I think, especially given the AI space moves so quickly, we have innovation happening, by the hour.
Yeah.
I think the more agile you can operate, and the greater versatility that you have when you're building your AI applications, I think that's going to pay off in the long run.
Yeah, I completely concur, and that's obviously core philosophy to how we design our products at Kilo, which is that
Right.
model freedom is extremely important. Like you've seen it. There's, deals happening with Cursor and SpaceX and Throp, like with Claude Code and Cursor having their proprietary models that you're basically stuck with if you're using those tools. And that's not a knock to them, but more so that if the model landscape continues to diversify and
Yeah.
these open weight models or open source models and providers do catch up to near parity, reasoning parity with the frontier models, you're going to want to be able to switch, especially as some of our previous guests have mentioned, when the token subsidies end for some of these subscription tools and you end up having to pay the actual API pricing per token. I think
Yeah.
model freedom will be very important, not only for individuals, but also for teams.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. So I think another question I have is what's the biggest misconception that people have about the costs of running AI at scale?
Yeah, absolutely. I think cost is not just about the model you choose and the number of tokens that you're processing. It's not as simple as that, and I think that is potentially how it's presented.
Yeah.
But cost is impacted by the workload shape, the traffic pattern,
Mhm.
and also the performance targets that you set as an engineering team. Right. So
Sure.
if you if you if you need greater latency, that's going to impact your or sorry, lower latency, that's going to impact your cost, right?
Yeah.
And then when we're talking about workload shape or traffic patterns, workload shape is like your distribution across the input and output tokens that your users are sending to your application. And then traffic patterns would mean like how does your traffic fluctuate throughout the day. So
Right.
all of those are considerations that impact cost. And then also, I think there might be an automatic assumption, as we've been talking about, that open source is in fact cheaper. And
Right.
I think if you apply open source models well, that is often the case. But managing your own infrastructure can be costly if you're sitting on idle GPUs, right? And so optimizing AI workloads, as I mentioned before, and then managing GPU resources efficiently, those are specialized skills. So trying to do that alone rather than working with an inference provider can be cost prohibitive and also
Sure.
resource intensive. So that's another thing that we discuss is what is the kind of the complexity of actually managing infrastructure on your own can be costly from a resource perspective, so and also a time perspective that could impact your time to market when you're launching a product. So I would say those are kind of the misconceptions that I come across.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, and then kind of leading into like some things that maybe end users don't know the inner workings of, but may experience. What should an everyday AI user understand about why some apps or tools feel instant and others feel slower, even when they're using, like, say, the same underlying model?
Yeah, absolutely. So when an app feels laggy or response times are slow, that might be a sign that the underlying infrastructure that's powering that model
Yeah,
has not been properly optimized to handle the load, right? So
right.
that could be an indication or a sign as to why it's laggy. And I think when in the opposite spectrum, I think when an app feels instant, that's usually an indication that the engineering team has invested in the inference layer and in the proper infrastructure to ensure that those workloads are running efficiently at production scale. So I think that would be the reason and the difference that you would see between applications that are using the same model. I think it has to do with the investment that they've made, the engineering team has made on the inference layer and the infrastructure powering the underlying model.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I have a question about that, which is when you say, it maybe it's slower because the engineering team hasn't invested in optimizing the infrastructure in the inference layer. Is optimizing the infrastructure in the inference layer, is that a deterministic objective, trade? Like is
Mm.
there a most optimized point for each model where you can where or inference layer where you can say, okay, this is now optimized? Like, is it binary? Or is it more of
Mm.
like a spectrum?
Yeah, that's a great question. Great follow up.
Thank you.
So it's definitely a spectrum for sure.
Yeah.
And it is trying to find that kind of sweet spot where, oftentimes when we talk with customers and AI engineers that are building Gen AI applications,
Yep.
we often try to ask them kind of what is their prioritization like what are they trying to accomplish? Like what is the use case and what is the prioritization of the kind of performance metrics that they're trying to achieve, right? So,
Yeah.
or it could even be, the business outcomes they're trying to achieve, right? So
Yeah.
and it's all about finding a balance between these the variables that they're trying to optimize for, right? So it
Sure.
could be cost effectiveness of their AI workload might be the reason why they want to optimize it, right? So optimizing throughput so that there's greater utilization of the GPU, so costs come down.
Yeah.
Or it could be like maybe it's a Gen AI application where latency is super important, right? It could be a
Right.
chat application, it could be coding, it could be a content moderation application that needs to classify, discrete, content that needs to
Yeah.
happen within seconds, so it doesn't impact the underlying application
Yeah.
or the user experience. So those are the trade-offs that you need to balance when you're optimizing an AI workload. So, and I think that's often missed when we're just looking at benchmarks, right? When you're just
Right.
looking at performance benchmarks, it's like,
Right.
they're just kind of like pushing the limits on one of those variables. But in most cases, when we talk to customers, they're trying to create a balance of many at once. And so it's trying to
Right.
find that sweet spot. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then I guess a follow-up to the follow-up is, are there are there, general optimizations that you do, based on the model, and then another layer of optimization based on the use case and the kind of like tool or, platform that you're optimizing for?
Yeah. So typically what we do is, we discuss with the customer again, like what their objectives are from a performance perspective. And then
Sure.
we then consult as a team, okay, like what are the optimization techniques that we have at our disposal to push this particular metric. So we have developed many techniques around quantization, speculative decoding, various versions of caching, and then also just like infrastructure management itself as well also can kind of help with certain optimization. So
Yeah.
yeah, there are a number of techniques that the team has developed, and some of these are now kind of like industry leveraged techniques, like the ones I just mentioned.
Yep.
However, at Friendly, given that we're a specialized inference provider, these are techniques that we have kind of proprietary versions of in many ways, or our own version of these types of techniques that have allowed us to outperform some of the providers in the market, for models like GLM 5.1, for example.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then I guess like inference infrastructure is something that's obviously very important and completely, has a massively tangible effect on the end user experience, but it's probably something that most end users don't actively think about or maybe even know about. So I want to
Right.
ask you, like, what is the role of inference infrastructure in determining which AI products actually win in the market?
Yeah. So, you know, my belief is that inference infrastructure can be a competitive advantage.
Right.
And what I mean by that is that, in a world like in this new world that we're in where, Gen AI powered applications is now becoming kind of the preferred user, interface that we have and user experience that we have,
Sure.
uh, optimizing the underlying AI workloads for speed, efficiency, reliability, cost, all of those things are going to have a direct impact on user adoption, user retention, and also the unit economics of your application itself.
Right.
And so when you optimize for those elements, you're gonna create a differentiator for yourself in the market. So that's kind of how I see it. So yeah, I think it's very critical when when you're building an AI application to ensure that you are investing in the inference layer, because I do think in this current market that in many ways can help you capture greater market share because you will be a differentiated offering in the market.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I guess for the final few questions here, so I see someone in the comments saying it's the inference layer and it's also the prompt management. So I guess that's kind of on like the end user side and like the product side,
Mhm.
which I would agree with. Um, but kind of going back to more like general AI industry, AI universe stuff. If
Sure.
you had to give one piece of advice to someone building either their career or maybe a startup or a business around AI right now, what would that be?
Yeah, I always go back to educating yourself,
Yeah.
and I think don't be afraid to kind of go in depth And so I
Sure.
think there's like so many great resources out there that, that are free that allow you to truly understand like what's happening behind the scenes. So,
Uh-huh.
understanding how LLMs are trained, how they're served, the hardware behind them. I think there's a lot of resources that allow you to understand what's happening in greater detail. I think that when you do that, you can then build your career. I think you will then be seen more as a strategic resource in your career versus operating at more of like a surface level with the AI products that are out there.
Yeah.
I think also if you have kind of an entrepreneurial spirit, I think understanding what's again kind of the technology behind AI, I think will allow you to um, think creatively about how you could potentially innovate in this space. Because I think we can all agree we're still very early.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for innovation, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to build in this space. And so
Sure.
I think I always go back to kind of grounding yourself in a kind of deeper understanding of what's happening behind the scenes. And I think that will make you a really kind of strategic resource as a potential employee, and then also potentially open up a career path where you can also build in this space as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I don't know if I have a feeling you would agree with this too, but I think one of the best ways to do that, if you're maybe on the edge or on the outside of the AI industry, is just to get involved with like a startup at some
Hmm.
level, like work for
Yeah.
one, intern for one, contribute to one, because being at like a startup in AI is such a different experience than being at a legacy tech company right now, especially in, May of 2026, in that you're hearing truly like some cutting edge information, and you learn so much just through osmosis. Like I can speak to that from my personal experience. Like I'll be in conversations with people at conferences and I'll be so surprised at how much I actually do know about AI in the space, even
Yeah.
not coming from a software engineering background.
Yeah.
And that's all just done organically. So that'd be my one piece of advice. And I don't know if you would agree in that
I
sentiment.
wholeheartedly agree with that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I built my career working in the early days of a startup, and I think there's
Mhm.
so much to learn when you're operating at that level. And to your point, a lot of it's done just through sheer osmosis, and also just learning from your peers, just being exposed to responsibility that you might not have at a larger company, and really kind of learning by doing. I think that's kind of historically how I've always learned best, is kind of throwing myself in there and trying to figure it out, and learning by doing. So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that advice. I think it's great.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I want to give you, the last minute or so to just say anything you want to say about Friendly, maybe let people know where they can find you, what sort of people should use Friendly, anything you want to flex, plug, the stage is yours.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Brian.
Yep.
Thanks. So yeah, Friendly's based in San Francisco. We actually just opened our office a block from the Moscone Center. We have a beautiful event space with our office. So we'll be hosting a number of developer events in the coming months. And yeah, I think if you're building AI applications and you're deploying AI models, especially open models in production, we'd love to talk to you about how we can work together, how we can optimize those workloads, like as I mentioned, for cost effectiveness, and also for performance. So really exciting time. Really, I think, thank you so much, Brian, for having me on the show.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
and yeah, you can find us at friendly.ai. And yeah, we'd love to kind of see you guys at our events as well.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for joining us, Alex. I really appreciate it. It was super insightful. Maybe hope to have you on again on the show soon, and I'm sure we'll be in touch. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brian. Have a great
Yeah,
rest of the day.
you too. Bye.
Bye.
All right, cool. Give it up for Alex and the Friendly team. I see a lot of activity in the chat, so very engaged group right there. Our session right there. So we have another guest coming on in just a minute, which I'm really excited about. We have two more guests, both super interesting topics, and I am just gonna pull up the the attendee guide again for anyone that missed that, just so that they can we can scan the QR and Make sure that you have all the resources you need. And again, for anyone who's been here, the cloud agent workflow is going to pick 3 random attendees to give $50 of Kilo credits to. So stick around for the end for that. I'm just going to ping our next speaker. Make sure that he has the right link. Okay, someone said, I just noticed Quen 3.7 Max released today. Interesting. And I see Stefan's concurring a lot with, the things that Alex and I were just talking about, which is, lots of colleagues coming up to me and asking me what's coming next. Exactly. This is what, I see is really important to do a better job if you don't understand what's happening in the Bay. Yeah. And Stefan, I agree with your points about the inference layer. It's not just the inference layer, which is extremely important, as Alex, educated us on, but also properly structured prompts or too much data or output is a reason as well. And that might be something that, the end user might not even have control over, right? If it's like a coding agent like Kilo, you have your system prompt, which basically teaches the agent how to act, and that has to be optimized too for a good end user experience. All right, cool. Our next guest is here, so I'm going to pull him on stage. Let me just stop sharing my screen. And welcome, John.
Hey, how are you doing, Brian?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm hosting a 5K in a few hours,
Oh,
and I
no
was
way.
freaking out yesterday that it was going to be 90 degrees, and I was going to have to cancel it because, the last thing I wanted someone is to faint. But it's rainy, and you're in New York, right?
Yep, I am.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it's prime running weather right now.
And luckily, I missed out on the 90-degree weather because I was out in Minneapolis for a conference until late last night. So as soon as I got back, I brought the rain and crappy weather back with me.
I live for this. This is my kind of weather.
Yeah, same. All right, so I want to give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you're working on, what you do, maybe how we met, just any context you think would help the viewers.
Yeah. So I'm Jonathan Murray. I'm one of the organizers and I guess co-founders of AI Tinkerers. AI Tinkerers is a builder and practitioner community for people building in generative AI. This thing got started right when Transformers were coming out. So the goalpost of what that means to build with generative AI has changed a lot, and the companies we've worked with and the whole space has changed, and it's been really amazing to watch. I host a ton of events, mostly in New York City. We're doing one a week. I think with the fact that goalposts on what it means to be an AI tinkerer and build, I'm always experimenting. We're doing a 5K hack and run, but we also do demo days, hackathons. Brian, I met you. We've worked together on a few events here in New York City, doing stuff with our OpenClaw hackathon a few months ago. I met Brian when I was in Japan on a video call.
Yep.
He's been a great person to work with.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Same sentiment to you too. But yeah, I think you have a really unique perspective for this event because you're so embedded in the builder community. And we've had some guests on already. We've had content creators, engineers, startup founders, things like that. And I think a lot of them had a similar sentiment, which is that people are congregating more in person than ever before. Is that a symptom of AI? Why is that? Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, I think that to be true. I think for what I do, I've noticed that since I started, more people that are outsiders towards our traditional starting ethos are interested in coming to our events and learning.
Yeah.
Now the events are just for builders, right? But that definition has expanded a lot.
Totally.
I think people. I think the pandemic did a number on people's habits. And I think we're starting to getting back to wanting to be in person. And I think there was some kind of extinction event happened in the early 2020s that has done a number on people's habits. And people are really interested in getting together again and re-exploring what that is.
Yeah, for sure. No, I totally agree. I guess my other question would be like, I've been asking this to everybody today, which is what's like the most overrated or overhyped thing in AI right now, especially like from your perspective within the builder community, and what's the most underrated?
What's the most underrated? Well, I can tell you the most overrated. I have a concrete and abstract answer for you.
Let's hear it.
Concrete, everyone's making Chrome extensions right now.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that.
It's a lot of GPT 3.5 moment. It's a GPT 3.5 moment, I think, where I think AI is going to make us question the nature of UI and the
Yeah,
internet, and it doesn't
I
make
agree.
sense to build for the old internet. More abstractly, I think AI has allowed a lot of people to start doing their own business, and you see it in SF. Everybody's a founder. I would argue that these people aren't founders, but it's a new class of labor around like almost like consulting. And I think the term founder is being beaten to death.
Yeah.
And I think it's troubling that there's so much worship around the idea of being a founder because it's a horrible job. And
Interesting.
I think that it's because it's been so valorized, because of the
Yeah.
compounding successes to San Francisco.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
taken on a new meaning.
That is a super interesting perspective. Yeah.
I think the most underrated thing in AI right now is image diffusion as
Okay.
it relates to content, but also world models
Yeah.
and like the stuff that they're doing with JEPA.
Mhm.
I think you're seeing, I'm like, so my background is I used to be a designer and I go
Yeah.
to art school and did that whole thing.
Mhm.
And I follow a ton of really cool creators for media,
Right.
using like Seed Dance and other cool models. And it's so underappreciated here in the United States. And everything that's being cool, that's being made is coming out of Asia now.
Okay, cool.
And all the cool people I follow on Twitter are out of Asia. And I feel like it's a shame that we're focusing on just language here. And I think like we have runway here in New
Yeah.
York, but I think we can do a lot more with content media.
Yeah, for sure. So can you explain like what you mean by image diffusion for those who may not know?
Yeah. So when they started making models to make pictures, they figured out that if you get like a picture of a tiger,
Yeah.
and you scaled it back to just be like noise, like TV static,
Yep.
you could reverse that. So it becomes TV static that becomes a tiger. And then if you do that a million different times with different pictures of tigers, then you can like make Tony the Tiger piloting an F-15.
Right.
With training a model. So that has remained still the primary way that when you use like Seed Dance or GPT Image 2,
Yeah.
like on like a macro industrial scale, you
Sure.
make these.
Yeah. No, makes sense. Someone in the chat just said Alibaba is really cooking with their models, not gonna lie.
They are. It's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Quen is great. But I'm actually going to be on an Alibaba live stream next week, I think. So
That's so
stay
sick.
tuned for that. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Oh, my mic just fell off. I got to hold it now. Appreciate that. Yeah, my other question would be like, what topics or demos are drawing like the biggest crowds at the AI Tinkers events right now? Anything specific?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's very excited about harnesses right now as it relates to memory.
Sure.
Generative UI is very popular for like stuff like Copilot Kit, or we just did a whole generative UI demo day last week.
Okay.
It was Sky Valley, which is incubated at the New York City incubator BetaWorks.
Yeah.
Just did a demo day. And that got like a massive surge of interest. And I find as like a category that has remained very popular throughout the year.
Cool. And then I guess, what separates a demo that gets the room talking from one that falls flat, especially like with the show and tells or the hackathons or whatever else? Is there anything like through line there?
Yeah, I would say that when thinking about demoing a product, like the core primitive needs to be like showing your code,
right?
Talking about your process. And there's like when someone gets up on the frickin' stage and they take out a goddamn slide deck,
Yeah.
tell that it was made with Claude Design, like I want to throw something at them. And no
Right.
one likes that. At this point, the abstract idea is being like, we could do this, it is not interesting anymore. And
Yeah.
it needs to be, and that's what our community is all about, which is just like showing running code. And you still have to know what the code does. And that's what's interesting.
Yeah. And I guess like you mentioned like Chrome extensions as kind of like a bubble of a like maybe a waste of effort right now. But I'm curious, like what's a class of product that the community is building at but no one's really nailed yet, if anything?
I mean, not to jump back on like the diffusion.
No, please, whatever you think. Yeah.
But I think that like we just did a hackathon around image pipelines and media pipelines. And I feel like there is still like a lot of stumbling blocks to getting this technology into the hands of agencies and creators effectively.
Right.
And I think it's the UI and general understanding of like how these tools work. And you see like all these like aggregators like 11 Labs, Hayes Field, Comfy UI that are all kind of coming at the same UIs, which is a lot of time is like node based editors. And I feel like someone's going to come along and annihilate these people with something new that uses these tools in a different way. And I didn't see it at my events. And I think it's going to be something super weird. I really wanted to see it. And that's why I do a lot of these events, because I just want to see.
Yeah. How long do you think the UI will go away eventually? Like how long until that happens? Or is it always going to, or are people always going to want, websites?
It's a good question. So like, I think you see everyone making CLIs right now and being like the future's in the terminal.
Or the future's like a one line.
Yeah, it's like a one line.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think there's going to be a class of operator that works like that.
Yeah.
But I think that like we're really like underserving a large amount of the population by being like visual thinkers, visual learners, by being like people who learn on the fly, by being like we're done with UI now.
I agree.
I don't think it's ever going to go away. I think it's just going to get weirder. I hope it gets really weird.
Yeah, I kind of want it to get weird too. I mean, I think one example or proof of that sentiment is like there are super experienced engineers that still prefer VS Code over like a CLI tool, and that's because maybe they're more visually biased.
Yeah. I like tried my hardest to use Warp. I bought the subscription. I'm like, it's gonna be me now, and I still like defer to using like I've been using Zo Computer for everything. I just like can't break that habit.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm the same way. I use Kilo extension and VS Code for like all my coding, and like the Kilo Claw for like personal AI. And I actually have a question in the chat here if you don't mind taking those.
Yeah. Can I see the chat or?
No, I have it on. I think for your view, you can't see it. I'll just read it out to you because it's on YouTube.
Hello.
Which is what are your opinions on how AI art changes art? How does it affect artists?
Yeah. I think like I think what's happening is that art has been boring for a while and has become institutionalized around being essentially like a blue chip. The art market for a while has sucked, right? And I think AI, like, did you see the thing? That guy that got the job as the creative director at Anthropic because he posted an original Monet painting of the water lilies.
No.
Said that this was AI generated. This was made with AI, and like the whole like he got like 30,000 comments of people being like, obviously it's AI.
Yeah.
Look at these brush strokes, and it's like this is a real Monet.
Yeah. Okay, so it's like a social experiment almost.
But that's art, right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the history of art moves in the sine wave where we go from I see making a painting to it being like this kind of like node floating point graph of like it reminds me of the times of like Marcel Duchamp or Andy Warhol with the Factory, where art takes on this like weird ephemeral state that describes like the process and the reaction so much more than the actual media itself.
Interesting.
And I think AI is kind of becoming an arbiter of that moment instead of like, because now like memes are art. Like I have a photo I can send you of just like crunchy Charlie Kirk as the California Ravens on a Nintendo DS talking about Family Guy sneaker O'Toole's.
That's a crazy sentence.
That is way more art than anything made like than that banana. The banana, if you know what I'm talking about, is also art, but
yeah.
I think in that sense it's very profound in what it elicits from ourselves.
I get what you're saying. Like art is like basically become like a snoozy like legacy academic institution, but it should be more like boots on the ground sort of thing.
Yeah, eliciting reactions from people. I think it's incredible now that like some kid who doesn't have any formal experience can like make something and take his experiences and project it onto the internet using these tools. I think it's very exciting.
Yeah, I think it's all about like your intention. Like if your intention is to like deceive, then maybe I could see why people would be against that. But if it's like if it's just the new medium for projecting your perspective, then maybe not. Yeah,
I think it's like even now you see like Higgsfield on Twitter, they made like a 90-minute video. And it's just like some superhero slop.
Yeah.
And you're still like, this kind of sucks. You're like, I would never watch that. Like, I would watch that because this is my job,
right?
And I want to like understand what they're doing more. But I think AI is big promise is like it's not going to make Marvel movies,
right?
It's going to make something really weird, like I don't know.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like something that like the legacy, like the historical industry can't produce. So, yeah. No, it makes sense. I mean, I guess kind of going back to like the builder community stuff. What is the difference between running an event in New York versus San Francisco?
Ooh, so I like running these events in New York more because it's more interesting. I think that the community is more intersectional, and the way people are using AI is different than San Francisco, where it is a monolith and everyone's doing AI stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'll go do events in San Francisco, and like it feels a lot more like model-y and infrastructure-y, and everyone's selling their shovels.
Right.
Versus like out here, it's like you're gonna see people like doing Family Guy video edit apps.
Yeah.
And,
I remember that one.
Yeah. All sorts of stuff.
Yeah. I do think it's like maybe more. It's like a less traditionally technical crowd, and that produces like a wider variety of like use cases. Maybe. I
think so, and like. I just think that there's more variation and intersectionality when it comes to what people are making.
Yeah.
The quality in SF is like incredible. The thing is that like I think like if you're organizing an event in San Francisco, if you're gonna like do an Anthropic hackathon in SF, it's like not as cool as doing it here.
Yeah, it's true. It's just like everyday.
Everyday thing. I like. It's definitely a smaller market.
We're like an underdog. Yeah, which is ironic. New York being an underdog in anything, but Anyway, I want to also ask like, what's maybe like one of the more interesting projects or demos that you've seen this year that you think didn't get enough attention or didn't get the attention it deserved?
Or
if anything stands out, any like super interesting demos you've witnessed.
I thought we did a demo day on OpenClaw a few months ago, and this guy brought in a Unity robot that he was running OpenClaw on, and the robot like started like doing all these like emergent like it like was able to like do more motions and movements than it was installed to, like it like a brain.
Yeah.
Think about it like as like a synapse
Terminator,
able to like like walk more dynamically, and like I forget what it literally did, but like I watched that and I was like, oh my god, because I think like that's the unlock, right? With a lot of
Yeah.
these tools is that they're gonna do things that like we didn't intend them to do.
Yeah.
You know, if we scale these data centers and we just like put these like agentic harnesses on them that can like connect different parts of their like, especially with robots,
Yeah.
it'll be like very profound. I mean, it already happens with like open cloud, right? But it's just like more abstract.
Yeah, for sure. I guess also like what is something that like what's a mistake that maybe organizers make when trying to build like a real builder community? Because AI Tinkers is huge and like I know there's a lot of other people trying to do something similar. Just doesn't always work out.
I think like people from like first principles like view success as having a really big event.
Right.
Like I'm gonna have 500 people at my event,
Yeah.
and like that's not always what success looks like.
Right.
I think when you're building these communities is that you have to start like hyper curated. It's like a startup, right? Like the first few people that come really set the tone.
Yeah.
So I think like if dude, like if 5,000 people apply, but only like 50 people are like qualified to come, then the event's going to be 50 people.
Right.
And like there's a lot of incentives like in working with sponsors and outsiders where the success, like because of their metrics, is numbers. So I think it's just managing that, and that's the hard part, especially when you're getting started.
Yeah, it makes sense. And did you like the history of AI Tinkers? Like, did it start with in-person events, or did it start as like an online community, or like what's like the origin?
It started as in-person events in Seattle.
Oh, interesting.
The founder is Joe Heitzberg from Seattle, and he's a dope, like brilliant guy.
Yeah.
And I found out about it through Discord, and I was like, "This is awesome!"
Yeah.
And like, I wanted to be the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah.
I was like definitely the dumbest person. I was like, this is because we did a dinner. They did one dinner here in New York, and I was like, I have nothing to talk about. I had just done a crypto startup.
That's funny. Yeah, no, I was actually just with our last guest. I was saying like similar sentiment, which is that like similar sentiment to being the dumbest person in the room. Like for people that are looking to be builders in the space, or maybe kind of on the peripheral of AI, not all the way in yet. I think the best way to get building is to like get involved with some kind of early startup or builder community, because you just learn so much through osmosis. And like I'm not a software engineer by trade, but I feel I'm like constantly surprising myself with how much I actually do know about AI just because I'm talking to so many people that know what they're talking about.
I had this like aha moment maybe like 4 months ago where I've been doing this for years, but I'm always like, I'm non-technical. I don't know what the frick I'm talking about. But it like clicked like 4 months ago. It's like I actually know like what you're talking about. Like I know what an MCP server is.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, it's like flowers for Algernon.
That's a good analogy. Yeah. No, it's true. Like I just said this in the last session, but I was at an event in Minneapolis with my colleague Brendan, and my whole spiel is always like, I'm not a developer, but I built all this. And then Brendan was like, dude, you got to stop saying that, because you at this point you are like you can't like say you're not technical. I'm like, maybe you're right, because and it's just a symptom of spending so much time with people that are genuinely like legitimate builders.
And I'll like go out to like the bar and see my friends from college, and like I'll talk about this, and they'll be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like like I'm using the Higgsfield MCP with my like IDE agent. I like doing all this stuff, and they're like, it's funny. It's you don't realize how much of a bubble you're in, and you're like, and you knock yourself, but then you're like, oh, like actually know a few things or two. What's your background?
So I started. I mean, my education is in physics actually.
Oh,
and
cool.
Then, and then I graduated kind of into COVID, and I just got like the first job I got, which was support engineer, which was like semi-technical, but not really a lot of coding. And then transitioned to like developer community, and then DevRel. And I've been DevRel for like a few years now.
Cool.
Yeah. But no, I'm the same. I was laughing with my girlfriend always makes fun of me and says I have to go outside because I'm like this is gonna disrupt this new like OpenClaw is gonna disrupt so much. I don't think people understand how important this is. The reality is that there's like the lagging adopters are so far behind our little bubble of like being
Yeah.
in the frontier of AI that they're still like learning how to use like Chat GPT and like copying and pasting code.
Dude, I was at the Spa 88, the Russian bathhouse in Wall Street with my
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
And he was showing me his custom GPTs for
Yeah.
doing all this like creative automation stuff, and I was like, I gotta show you Hermes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I
seriously.
gotta show you what Rune's talking about on Twitter.
Yeah. I know. Like it's like and it's not a knock to people that are like just adopting these
Of
tools,
course.
but like it's just it's more to highlight that if you're even like thinking about OpenClaw or Hermes or like thinking about these kind of cutting edge harnesses, you're so far ahead of like where most of the population is.
I
Yeah.
just really want to see people with like different perspectives, like using.
Yeah.
It's like I want to see what my mom wants to do with Hermes, if she
Yeah.
has use for that, because she just takes pictures of flowers.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's probably something with that. Like, I've set up like a fair amount of use cases for my friends and family, like through my personal OpenClaw. Like, one of my buddies is a psych nurse, and he's gonna move to New York to be closer to us. And he is like, I want to move to New York, but I don't feel like looking for a job. So I like put my OpenClaw on like searching jobs using Exa search. I don't know if you know Exa, like to find the decision makers at these hospitals and like email them with his resume, and then
That's cool.
it's like a summary like once a week. All he sees is like a summary of like where the conversations are on his behalf, which is like, yeah, it's pretty fun when you actually like know how to use these things.
Yeah, and it's getting easier. I think that's like the biggest problem is that they're solving is getting just regular people that aren't technical to use these tools.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Have you found that like the builder events are growing more non-technical or like leaning more non-technical now, or?
I would say it's still pretty technical. I would just say that it's like I'm seeing a lot of people that have become technical,
Right.
especially like PMs. There's lots of interest in this space, and like I think anyone can come. I just like need to see that you're doing stuff, because sometimes you get like kind of like tourists, I call them, that
Yeah.
are there to like check stuff out, and like unfortunately the events are not for them. Like I hate to be like that, but it's just like that.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Do you think that like if you understand the systems and the technical, I guess the way you understand the systems from a technical standpoint, but say you don't, if you had to write a line of code yourself, it wouldn't work. Do you think vibing is enough if you have like the technical understanding of at least like how the systems operate?
I think so. I think it's like if you're out there and you're like building stuff, vibing, and it's like working.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
Dude, totally. I that's the future.
I agree. Yeah, I tend to agree. I think some people don't. I mean, obviously, I would not be able to vibe like the products that the Kilo engineers are building as like super senior engineers who are also using AI. But I do think I could vibe enough to get like some working products out there if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even like connecting, just like I feel like we're in an era of middleware right now before
Totally.
everything gets bitter lessened.
Yeah,
But right now, everything's becoming an API. Everything's becoming a CLI.
totally.
I think like if you understand how all that works, then you can like put together some like really useful tools for yourself.
Yeah. Even just by like prompting the agent with like the the baseline foundational outline of what you're trying to connect, it can piece it together for you probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like it's like kind of cringe but really helpful, or tools like GStack.
GStat. I don't know if I'm familiar with that one.
Like Gary Tan's like OS for starting companies.
Okay.
So like I think if there's going to be like skills and other frameworks to like really help people build. And
Yeah. Have you heard of Gastown? Steve
Dude,
Yegi?
we just did an event with a guy who works for Steve Yegi. We flew him into New York.
No way.
Rented a photo studio on Canal Street, and we did a 2-day software factory workshop.
That's awesome. Because we actually just yesterday GA'd our Kilo hosted gas town, which I'm super excited about.
That stuff's really cool.
Yeah. But anyway, I want to give you the last minute just to, plug anything you want to plug about AI Tinkerers, or where people can find you, or anything you want to let people know about what you do or what's coming up for you.
Oh, that's really nice of you.
Yeah.
Guys, today we're running a 5K and doing a hackathon at the same time. It's a hack and run. We're trying it out. I don't know if it's going to work, but it should be fun. 5:30 p.m. at BetaWorks. Come through. We got a bunch of stuff coming up for New York City Tech Week. Got an omakase dinner, hackathon, demo day. Check out the website, nyc.aitinkers.org. We got tons of stuff. If you want to see an event happen that you're curious about, you can find me, Jonathan Murray, AI Tinkers on LinkedIn, or at RJNMRRY on Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, we put the link to AI Tinkers in the chat. There's a lot of love for you in the session in the chat as well. And I want to get an invite to this omakase dinner because I love sushi.
Fuck
so
yeah.
Let me know how that can happen. All right, cool.
I'll just text you.
All right, cool. Well, thanks so much, John. I really appreciate it.
Thanks
Talk
for having
soon.
me on, man.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
All right, give it up for John and AI Tinkers. People are saying the hack and run sounds fun. I've never heard of that, and I think it would be fun too, especially now because you can like code from your phone, as I mentioned I did last night on the plane. But anyway, I'm super excited to bring on our last guest. And I'm also going to bring back on Brendan to help me chat with her, who is Becca Campbell. Hi, Becca.
Hey, Ryan. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give you a chance to first kind of explain who you are, what your background is, what you're working on, kind of, what your role in the AI industry is right now.
Yeah, so I am at a software company called Parkade, and we help.
Sorry, Becca. I think your audio kind of just cut out a little bit. Maybe I don't know if you're hearing that.
Can you hear me okay?
Still a little bit shaky. I think there's maybe also an echo.
This?
Not quite. And don't worry, because you're not the first one to have audio issues with this platform. So that might be on us.
Should have been come back.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
What's going on, Brennan?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. All right, there's Becca. Let's see if it's better. Hey, Becca.
Hey, is that any better?
Way better. Perfect.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, so basically, I'm with Parkade. We are a software company where we help multifamily buildings manage their parking, helping residents find their spots, make reservations. We handle the payments for the multifamily units. And I'm fully in the parking industry. I run our VP, or I am our VP of Ops. And so I run our Ops team, which includes customer success, operations, support, and onboarding, which is pretty standard for what I've been doing in terms of being in tech companies, always running customer-facing teams and operations teams.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, this is super interesting perspective because I don't know if a lot of people would think that parking would be an industry where AI would maybe be native or adopted. I also know that you're really interested in like AI adoption and like what it takes to get someone to adopt AI. So I'm curious, like, from your perspective, what does it actually take to get an org to adopt AI versus just talking about adopting AI?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've seen pretty consistently is like the idea and getting teams started, like really understanding the difference between AI as like a tool for augmentation versus like automation or like fully taking over workflows, right? Like AI is a tool that helps you do your job better. It isn't always a chat bot that is going to talk to our customers. And so I think like helping teams understand that use case then sort of helps you like roll into getting it rolled out. And I think even starting with like really basic stuff, like I've even seen just starting with the idea of like, do you use ChatGPT to write an email to a customer? Like, can ChatGPT like help you finesse like what you're trying to communicate? And then from there, basically like really diving into any operational pain points, like what is something that you hate doing in your job today? Like, how do we automate this? How do we make it easier for you to do that job? And then I think creating like just low barrier access points, right? I think AI is just like any other tool. If you don't know how to use it, if you're intimidated, if you're timid, we have to create like easy ways for you to start dabbling in it, so that you also like get past the hump of trying AI, right? And then I think from there, like as individuals start trying AI, as individuals on your team start like using it in cool ways, basically just like highlighting the heck out of those, really showcasing those like across the team. If it's anything from like something small to someone actually going in and like building a new workflow, like really highlighting that throughout the team. And then the last thing is basically just making sure that your leadership is on board. Like if your managers, if your VPs don't know how, like aren't even using ChatGPT, that's a huge red flag. And I think that's the like kind of most important layer too, is just making sure that everyone at the leadership level is using it as well.
Yeah, and have you found that the leaders are like, which group is more hesitant to adopt? Is it the leaders or is it the ICPs or middle managers or somewhere in between?
It's so interesting because I think at Parkgate, so I've been here now for just about 2.5 months, and it's like a mix on who has been most or least interested in AI historically, like some managers and then some ICs. And previously it was more of the ICs, like at other companies that I've been at. And that might be because like we as a management team created such a culture of like, almost like a competitive culture of using it, right? Like if our VP of sales was doing something really cool, that pushed me to be more competitive, to try new things. And so I think it's like, it's been a mix at Parkade now, where it's like some leadership has been a little bit hesitant, and some of our ICs, but it comes back to like what I was saying originally too, that like getting everyone to feel like it is a tool that helps you do your job versus like AI equals a chatbot that's going to go rogue with our customers, you know?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And so like when you just recently joined, like how did you take the lessons maybe from that kind of gamification or other things? And like when you came to Parkade, like what was kind of your goal about how to kind of lean in or champion AI there?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think at Settle, my previous company, like it was still almost taboo to use ChatGPT, to say that you had used ChatGPT for like a review or for an email. Like you almost didn't want to admit it. Whereas here I have been very vocal and positive and like unabashedly saying that I use it consistently and that I am looking for folks on my team to be using it and like asking them about how they use it. And then I think the other thing too is like, we sort of at Settle previously, we would try new tools and just sort of like open them up for the team and let them use it or let them not use it. And we were just like rolling out like a couple new like features or tools that we would use. Whereas my approach here has been to be a more methodical, like only bringing in one tool at a time and then having these sort of like groups of things that we want the team to use it for. And then being consistent too with the team about like, this is how you use it, why you use it. And also like the expectation is set that you're using it too. It's not as much like, hey, give it a shot, see if you like it, you know, like it's up to you to use it or not, but being more methodical that like, okay, this is a new tool that like we've invested in and there's the expectation that you're using it too. I think setting that like has been an important difference.
So how do you actually measure the success for the AI enablement beyond like we just deploy this tool or we have people using it? Like, are there any hard metrics or are there any things that you look for that might not be intuitive?
Yeah, I mean, with I would say like most of the tools that we're using today have like a clear ROI with them, right? Like, especially in the support world, it's like
Sure.
the number of tickets that we have been able to deflect because AI has either come in and like dealt with the ticket directly,
Yeah.
or ticket turnaround time, resolution time, first response time. Those are the metrics that we're looking at specifically to say, like, is AI helpful in this situation or not? Like, is it bringing our first response time down? Is it bringing our overall response time down too? And are we able to process more, a higher ticket volume within a given day or within a given period? Those are definitely some of the ones that we were looking at, like, and that have a clear metric associated with them, you know?
Yeah.
I also think that like we have used it in other more like subjective ways, right? Like we've used it to help build out our help center, and there's not necessarily as like a specific one-to-one match on like,
Sure.
has this worked or not? You know, it's like we have more help center articles that are correct and that like are actually able to like help our users too. So I think there's a little bit of both like objective and subjective.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that that's definitely true. And maybe like kind of expanding on that, you're talking about support and some ticket deflection. Like I think ticket deflection is something that, you know, support's been thinking about forever since we've had customer support. But then on the kind of the other side of that, how would you think about handling, like, let's say you're a leader at a company and someone's worried about, oh, AI is just coming for my job, right? How do you think about handling that and framing that and working with the team to deal with that kind of concern?
Yeah, it is like we just have so much to do. The idea that like we would run out of things to do is, I mean, when that day comes, like I'm here for it. I'm ready for it. But like we have, I mean, I will say that like on the one side, it's basically saying, do you enjoy responding to these 100 users with the same issue, with the same template? Like we all agree that that's annoying and that's like low hanging fruit, right? But then I think also saying that like we also have this backlog of things that we want to be able to do that will help our users, that are going to help our main customers, the property managers, basically that like they know and they see that we have this incredible backlog of stuff that like we haven't even touched yet. And that AI really is like just helping us like get through the nitty gritty so we can focus on the more interesting, the more strategic stuff. And also that like they can spend more time on the highest, the most complex issues, right? Like let's get rid of a user asking how to reset their email, or a user asking like, where do I go to do this thing? And then let's spend more time on a user who has like a very complex question, who has a very like complex need, et cetera. I think that's kind of been the way that we've been framing it, that like there's no end of work to be done here, you know?
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. And I think it's shared by like a lot of people who are actually in the AI space, which is that if anything, maybe the AI innovations will just generate a brand new set of work items that weren't anticipated in the legacy systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking about this recently, and I think the like thing that I am hoping to instill with the team is like, my God, like for the whole time that I've been in the support world and customer success operations, like the barrier to doing any number of things is like the resource required or the tooling to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And now like our blocker isn't, can we do this? Our blocker is like, anything is possible, essentially, you know? And I think like coming with that framing too, that also helps people understand that we have a lot of stuff that we still have to do, you know?
Yeah. And I'm also curious, like, is there like a balance between, the top down mandates of adopting AI and kind of the bottoms up experimentation when rolling it out? Because Emily, our co-founder, kind of wrote an article about shadow AI. And when you're too strict about AI usage, your ICs, the non-decision makers end up using these tools in secret, and it causes maybe some security vulnerabilities or et cetera. Like, what's the balance between enforcing AI usage and allowing experimentation from ICs?
Yeah. I tell you, I've talked about this with the exec team at Parkit, and we were like, we hope there's shadow AI usage happening out there, like we want to bring it out of the shadows. We want to encourage that. But we also just brought on a new VP of engineering, and this is very much top of mind for him. Like, as we are increasing the tools that our teammates have access to, that we also want to do it really methodically, and that we have security in mind, and that we have roles and permissioning in mind too. So we actually like are in a place where there's been less of, I think, the like shadow AI happening, and we're in a position of basically just being able to kind of build the tooling in a way that reflects the like security, permissions, access that we needed to have.
Yeah.
We definitely are like dabbling a little bit more with giving some people, like where we haven't quite caught up to on the security side with where we want to be, we have been a little bit more flexible on giving people access to more tools that they could like potentially break the database with, right?
Sure.
But just sort of giving them the guardrails and the direction on like how to control for what they're building and how to control for what they're doing too. But at the end of the day, we're also just being a little bit like flexible and saying like, we're giving them this access. It could cause some troubles for our engineers down the road, but like in the meantime, we really want to encourage that spirit of like trying new things and innovation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I want to kind of couple that with, you were talking earlier about like, and I think this is something that I found for myself with AI, like getting things done that wouldn't have happened otherwise, like that you wanted to get done, but like couldn't, or it was just like maybe too expensive in terms of like time or effort before. So when let's say you're starting to like adopt more AI and you're kind of getting to that point where there are things that you're like, oh, this probably could be solved. How do you think about deciding? I think this is something probably every leader at every company is thinking about, is like, how do you think about, build versus buy versus like take something off the shelf and hack something together with it versus like just accept the way it exists, right? Like that's another set of decisions that I think are like changing, something, again, a kind of decision we've talked about for a long time as leaders, but has changed in this world.
Yeah, we're definitely navigating these decisions right now. We, like, on the one hand, are just continuing to build it on our side, like anything that in some cases, like we are definitely still cobbling together what we could probably easily get a platform or like additional service to do. But it's also a matter of like, in a lot of these cases, we intend to buy or intend to integrate or like bring on a new tool to do the thing that we are kind of building around today. But it's a matter of like time. So I would say we're sort of taking the approach of like continuing to build because we've got the sort of like scrappy tooling and the ability to do these builds through some of the tools that we have. But like, we know that some of these tools out there are like more well suited and will achieve and accomplish what we otherwise are doing by like building these workflows. And also that they will also make the process easier or smoother or faster for our teams to be able to do some of the stuff that we are now cobbling together and building on our own, So I think there's also a little bit of, as soon as we have the resourcing and the time and the availability to test out these tools and to do the demos and to talk with the potential partners, we're just going the buy route, knowing that like, we don't want to recreate the wheel or rebuild the wheel or whatever the phrase is, that it's like, we fully intend to find the partners who can do these things, these like tools for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess this kind of maybe changing gears a little bit, but is there a difference between, I guess, championing AI at a 5-person company versus a 500-person one? And if so, like what are the main differences there?
Yeah, 100%. On the 5-person side, like, this perception of, we'll give more tools or we'll give more access to people because they're showing an interest.
Yeah.
And we want to inspire that sense of creativity and curiosity is easy to do when we're a small team. When we talk about doing that, even when we get to the point where we have a dozen people on the team, I would say, regardless of team size, even when we get to the point where we have a dozen people on the team who are raising their hand and who want access to these tools, we're talking about a totally different beast. And we're very much building towards that future where we make it easy for people to create the workflows, create the agents, create the tools that they want, but we put in place the security and permission and the roles for them to be able to do that. I think that if we were already at a place where we had, dozens of teammates who wanted to start building and who wanted to start using these tools, we would not be as flexible or as open about just trying new things in the meantime. We would definitely be building towards or setting these programs up where there was a lot more control in terms of what teams were able to use them to do, which teams, which members of the teams had access to each tool. And I think we would be definitely a bit more methodical about rolling them out too. There's an element of when you roll a tool out that it's easier to control for, and it's easy to ensure adoption by, the 10 people that are going to be using it. But when you get to a 500 person company and you have 100 people that are going to be using this tool, you really want to put the steps in place that ensure that they are actually using it, given the kind of investment that these tools take. And also the auditing and the confirmation that they're using it too, and not just using it to to say that they're using it, but they're actually using it in an effective way too, especially with the cost of tokens, et cetera, these days that are seriously hurting the budgets.
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense. And so maybe kind of piggybacking off that, what advice would you have? I know that I've talked with a lot of folks, again, outside of tech. I talked earlier when Brian and I were kicking us off this morning about how I feel like I'm so, AI pilled or whatever you want to call it, because I work for an AI company. But I have a lot of friends who are, in knowledge work, working outside of tech that, have kind of seen some of these gains that you can get, and they're trying to be like the AI person in their organization, right? To show hey, this is how it could really help us. And so obviously the things you were talking about, being curious, experimenting, those are critical things. What do you think is an underrated skill for someone who's trying to do that, trying to say hey, I want to be the change rather than wait for the change inside my business?
Oof, that is a good question. I think that they have to be a bit humble and cautious, because I think coming into the room being I know myself that this is going to fix everyone's problems and make life easier is one thing, but it's another to come in strong, just knowing the audience out there is hesitant, is cautious, maybe has other feelings about negative or positive about AI's impact in the world, right? I think coming in with a little bit of humility into those conversations is super important, because otherwise you definitely run the risk of souring people before you even have the opportunity to show them what it can do. So I think it's a little bit of being cautious and being careful about the way that you talk about it and the potential impact that it'll have, right? But also being being super proactive and going for it. I think if there are ICs or individual contributors out there who want to raise their hand and who want to be that person, I am go for it. I think it's as a manager, as a VP, the more people in roles that you otherwise don't connect or don't see as someone who is building AI, the more people who are raising their hands like that, the more that I absolutely love it. And the rest of our management team feels the same. So I say go forward, do it, but also depending on the company that you're in and the management team and their perception or their interest in AI, be a little bit careful and be a little bit humble in that, because coming in and being, with the quite honest truth that it can make a huge difference, it can improve workflows, et cetera, is a little bit hard to turn around as quickly. So I think going into the discussion being this is something that's going to be great and it'll take some time too, I think is important.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of on the flip side of that, how do you spot the difference between genuine AI productivity gain, like things that are actually moving the needle and making people faster and more efficient, versus I guess what I'd call like AI theater, where like there's a lot of adoption, but I mean, there's been some surveys coming out of Stack Overflow and things that say that and certain tools are actually causing people to produce work slower. So how do you actually judge the difference between what's genuinely helpful and what's kind of just theater?
Yeah. I mean, in most of my teams, there's such a direct tie to the amount of time it took us to do this, the
Yeah.
like score that the individual had associated with the interaction. I mean, even in our onboarding team, there's like such a direct correlation to the amount of time that it took us to get a customer launched, right? That we have some pretty like clear metrics that we can point to as we are incorporating these tools and automation and whatnot, that like there is a very clear line that this tool did help us either work faster, or that resulted in a improved overall user experience, whether that's through like CSATs or surveys or survey responses that we get, you know. I think when we get to the point where like we're seeing the increased usage, but that not translate into either a faster resolution time or an improved user experience or an improved customer outcome, right? Then I think we're really at a place where we're seeing more of the like the theatrics or the using it just to check the box to say that you're using it. But in the meantime, we do have some pretty nice things that we can point to. That said, I also think that like we are very open to like some subjective usage, right? Like if someone's building a tool that takes the place of some manual workflow today, and the tool itself is maybe, you know, just as many steps, but it's like a better experience, and the sentiment in terms of like the employee usage of it is a good one. I mean, I think we're still even open to that because it helps reinforce the idea that people are being creative, that they're trying new things, that they're like thinking in terms of this spirit of innovation.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I know we're hitting up against time. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us here. Maybe just lastly, like two things. Like one, like if you think, you know, or if we might think that every company is going to have some sort of AI enablement function in the next couple of years, what do you think that role really looks like for folks that might be interested in that, either starting one or being in that role?
Mhm.
And then, you know, what else, what have we not talked about that we should be thinking about and folks should be thinking about that we haven't spoken about already?
Ooh, what have we not talked about? On the first question, we like every industry event that I've been to, every like panel that I've spoken on, there's so much talk around the like role of the customer success manager, for example, being wholly different in the near future and in the next couple of years as like someone who is working with AI tools and or who has that knowledge and that experience of AI tools, so that we're not just looking for relationship management and the ability to have professional communications, but that they also have a good sense of using these tools in order to deliver that kind of result or outcome. I think there's going to be a growth of like these roles generally where it is AI enablement or adoption in a specific team. So, I mean, there's not a ton out there yet, but there's definitely a growing group of people who are trained in the CS function and also know AI, and they're like a CS AI enablement person specifically. So I definitely see this like element of industry specific or like vertical specific AI enablement individuals who may have come from like RevOps or a technical background, but also just have, or come from like a CS background and are bringing that technical solution kind of thinking to the role. And what are we not talking about? I think like how we make this work, right? Like, especially in a team that's not engineering, that's not product, like all of my teams are go-to-market teams, like they don't have a background in technical solutions all the time. They do not know, they don't have a background necessarily in like how LLMs work. And so there is like this whole category of things of like, how do we even bring this to life for the people on our team? helping them understand like what AI actually is, like what it does, the pitfalls, the things that like we know it's going to be pretty crappy when we roll it out, but like that's expected because it goes through this whole period of training and whatnot. I think that that's something like a crack or a nut that has yet to be cracked, where it's like helping give teams enough information who don't have that technical background, who like aren't listening to the AI podcasts, you know, on a weekly basis, and just helping them like understand how it works, how it's valuable, et cetera, so that it feels more approachable and that it feels easier to use these tools too. I think there's like a whole world out there of that kind of like internal enablement that has yet to be like figured out perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And Brian, you're on mute, just FYI. But yeah, no, that's really helpful. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I really appreciate all the great insights. It's been like super informative. I know like it's something that a lot of people and even at small startups are struggling with, is like how to become AI native, how to use these tools responsibly. I want to give you the last 30 seconds to flex or plug or promote anything you want to promote, whether it's Parkade, whether it's where they can find you on LinkedIn or anywhere else. The stage is yours.
Yeah, I will actually even flip that a little bit and say,
Whoa.
you can find me on LinkedIn, Becca Campbell, I'm at Parkade. But honestly, if there are tools out there, or if there are workflows, or if there are like insights that are working well for your teams, I would love to hear them. I am definitely taking in as much info and like love hearing from potential partners, like great tools that are out there to bring to our team. And I'm also sharing those out through LinkedIn too, for new tools that I'm seeing, workflows that are working well, things to keep in mind as you're going into enabling AI, especially in like small and mid-sized tech companies. But yeah, would definitely also accept any insights or tools or ideas that your audience may have for me.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time, Becca. Thanks so much for joining us. And there's a lot of love for you and the insights you shared in the chat. So thanks so much again. And I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Yeah, take care. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Happy Thursday. Bye, everyone.
All right, give it up for Becca and Parkade. And we're just about done with this session. Oh my God, my mic keeps falling off.
Oh, you completely, it's just broken.
I know.
Now you're like one of the influencers that has to like hold it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a flex maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hate it. But anyway, this has been a long session. Thanks so much, truly, for everyone who's stuck with me the whole time. It's like our third like marathon stream we've done, and they've all been great. We had a really unique swath of guests this time. I promised we'd do a QA. I don't see a ton of questions in the chat. So maybe the first one was, I think, for Becca, but maybe I can answer, which is, how do you justify the ROI? I'm guessing of you mean of AI adoption, as this is additional spend and without offsetting it by FT or staff reductions. And what I would say for that is, if you're adopting AI, it's not just an ROI on your productivity, but also should have maybe a tangible ROI on like your revenue and profit as a company. Like if you're moving faster, if you're producing more, you're getting your pipeline is growing, that is the offset potentially. And it doesn't necessarily always mean that you have to offset it with, like layoffs or staff reductions. And I think a lot of AI native companies are growing right now. Like I know we just hired a bunch of people over the past few months. The most AI native companies, the companies that are like actually borderline abusing AI, are hiring like crazy. So I think if anything, that's maybe promising or optimistic outlook on it. Oh, thanks so much for asking about the Kilo merch store live streams, because I'm going to resume them tonight at 7 p.m. I was going to send an email, but I've been traveling a lot the past week. I was in London and then Minneapolis and Rhode Island back to back to back. So I haven't been home to my studio to be able to stream. But I'm here again now. So I'll resume the streams tonight. I'm glad you like them. And then when Hermes in Kilo, well, I do think that's been passed on to our product team. I don't know if you know any more, Brendan, but
no, I don't. Yeah, I mean, it's something we're definitely considering. Like there's Hermes and there's a lot of also derivative claws, right? And so we're definitely thinking about like what's the best way to like get to our mission of making, it's simple and easy for folks to like have an always on assistant. And whether that's, building on top of OpenClaw, we recently just added Composio to our OpenClaw instances, which I think is like a huge level up for them. So yeah, we're always looking to improve that. So it's definitely in the cards.
Yep. And then last thing, I see you come to Dallas and Austin. We were just in Austin a few months ago. You missed us, but maybe soon. You never know. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed visiting. So you never know. But the last thing, as promised, if anyone was here from the beginning, you'll remember that one of the things Brent and I did at the very beginning was ask Kilo Cloud Agent to select 3 random RSVPs from this event to win $50 of Kilo credits. And it's merged it into our little Vercel app. So I'm going to share my screen. And to be fair, I never promised that you... Oh, Tyler, you were there. I never promised... I can't see your profile picture in YouTube. It's too small. I never promised that you had to be here the whole time. So it's anyone who came to the event at all. So don't feel bad if you've been here the whole time and you didn't get credits, but I had to be fair, right? That's what I promised. So I'm going to share my screen. So this is our guide, and Kilo Cloud Agent and Kilo for Slack added the Discord button. It added Brendan to the speakers list. It added the timer, but I haven't merged that yet. And it added this little tab here with our winners. So Obina, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Azelo, Mordek, and Lassie Stilvang. Wow, those are some great names. But those are the winners of our $50 of credits. So I'll make sure if you're not in the stream right now, you'll get your credits by the end of the day. If you are, congratulations. And if anyone's interested in watching me live build the Kilo swag store, I'm going to do a stream tonight on my personal channel, which I'll link to here. And you can join me. It's going to be even more casual probably than this. I'll be, I think right now we're at the point where we have our Shopify store up and ready in development. We've, I forgot, Alessi and I reformatted it, revisioned it entirely to be like a 3D virtual store, which I thought you might like, Brendan. So it's like you actually walk around the store and you have to like go to the hat section and the shirt section and like the hoodie section as like a little avatar.
Nice.
Which is way awesome. Over the top. But yeah, if you want to tune in, it's at 7 p.m. tonight. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Brendan, for co-hosting, and stay tuned for the next event. I'm sure we'll do another one in a couple weeks.
Maybe with a microphone stand, or who knows?
Yeah, I think I might need to reinvest.
Remains to be seen.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody. Talk soon.